Thank you. Appreciated. Thank you all. Thank you for being here. It's a great day for America. No, it's not. It's a whole Craig Ferguson thing. Anyway, welcome everyone to the Friday anime stream. Good to see you all. Good to have everyone back on here for the Friday anime stream on Saturday. Yes, it's quite the weekend apparently for me. It's been a long day, actually, for me. But not bad. Hey, Seth, good to see you. Hey, JJ. And we are here to talk about anime and all things anime. As I mentioned in the chat beforehand, have a little bit of Otakon Online news. I submitted a panel to Otakon Online a couple weeks ago and was informed on Monday, I think it was, Sunday or Monday, that the panel was accepted, which is very exciting. It's a brief history of anime panel. And when it was accepted, I was then informed that all of the panel slots for Otakon Online are 30 minutes. That would have been nice to know before submitting the panel. History of all anime panel. So that was interesting. Yeah, and and by the way, it had to be submitted by tomorrow. Tomorrow's the deadline for this panel. So yeah, we could either do them live on the stream, or we could submit them ahead of time, pre-record the video and submit them. I decided to pre-record. And so guess what I've been doing all week is condensing down, and I actually ended up saying, making it a history of anime up through 1980, basically. So there's sort of the first half of my normal anime panel, kind of condensed down and done all that stuff. And that was kind of interesting. That was definitely an experience. To get it done, it got uploaded earlier today. So it should be on Otakon Online, which is very exciting that I will have that panel there. And hopefully it'll work out pretty well. I kind of restructured my history of anime panels. If you've seen it before, this is kind of a new take on it. I still have the same basic views, I think, that I had before, but I think I've managed to reorient it from the animator's perspective, what it was like for the industry itself, and how the industry was expanding over the course of those decades, which I think is a little more helpful to kind of wrap your brain around how it started as, individual animators, and you got studios and so forth. So I think it'll be helpful. And yes, in case you're asking or wondering, I am thinking or planning to re-record that and upload it to this YouTube channel, probably in segments. So I'll do like, the 70s and the 80s and the 90s as separate videos. So that is the idea there. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Got some other folks who are going to be doing some other panels as well. So Otakon Online should have some interesting stuff for all of you on there. Although I can tell you the panelists are not really happy with this 30-minute thing, so you may see a lot more joke panels than you thought you're used to. You may see a lot more people playing around with that time length. You may see panels just stopping after 30 minutes. Who knows? But hopefully it'll all work out. But that is what's coming up for Otakon Online in just a couple of weeks now. So that'll be quite interesting. Otherwise, that's really been my week, is that, and getting some other stuff kind of figured out. Got some plans for the schedule, chugging on. Well, you can, but you had to have submitted them already. So you had to, you had to have gone in saying, can I do 2 panels? Or more accurately, you have to basically say, I want to do panel A, B, C, D, E, F. And so you submit those, and they said, great, panel A is ready to go. You have 30 minutes. It's like, so that was the downside. And fortunately, they were good about allowing me at least to pivot the panel to make it a little different, so it could actually fit the 30 minutes. Because really, covering the history of so broad a topic in that little time, you're not really going to get a good sense of what's going on. Right? It's going to be really hard to grasp the whole idea of that. So really had to change it around a little bit, but. That is that. And actually, speaking of such things, I want to talk about something I really like. So let's move over to Brent's anime recommendation corner. Right, we gotta move, gotta shuffle around a little. I always do that. Maybe I'll do it so that you can see the screen still. Why not? The phone doesn't really like getting thrown around like that, but that's okay. We'll make it work. And let us go ahead. And I'm going to do a little recommendation here. See if I can do that. There we go. You can probably guess what I'm going to recommend here, right? Hello, welcome to Brent's Anime Recommendation Corner, where today I'm going to talk about Gunbuster. This is one of the great anime OVAs of the 80s. One of the first works by master anime studio Gainax. One of the things that really brought them onto the map. And what I love about Gunbuster is partly how it kind of trolls you when it first starts, because Gunbuster appears for all intents and purposes in the early sequences, once you get past these kind of sci-fi things, to be basically, I'm going to see if I can get, oh, we're in the wrong place. That would explain why that's, I'm going to start this over again because it started on episode 3. That explains why I'm not seeing the right thing. Ha ha. Hold on. Hold on. Wait. Don't do that. Okay, there we go. Let me do this again. Got to get that back. There we go. We'll get there. Welcome to Brent's Anime Recommendation Corner, where today you probably guessed it. I'm going to recommend Gunbuster, one of the pivotal OVAs of the 1980s, and one of the first major works by Studio Gainax, who'd go on to make Evangelion and lots of other notable things. And what I love about Gunbuster, one of the things, is that it kind of trolls you when it first starts out, because it seems, for all intents and purposes, to be this sort of shoujo series set in this science fiction time. There's aliens and war and so forth, but it's basically the story of these schoolgirls in the middle of this intense training. But there are also giant robots everywhere. And the reason for that is that this is basically a parody of a famous tennis anime, at least for this first episode. And so you're really lulled into thinking that you're going to get this sort of very shoujo thing, and then suddenly it starts getting a little more serious. And then one of the things I do love about it is that as the story progresses, it actually starts becoming much, much more than that. And I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but Gunbuster is made by a bunch of folks who are, for lack of a better term, really deep fans of anime and science fiction. What I mean by that is these are folks who appreciate what science fiction tries to do on a deep level, what anime tries to do on a deep level. So they're trying to tell more deep, sophisticated stories. They're trying to get into the psychology of the characters. They're trying to do interesting stuff with the science fiction, not use it as an excuse for just lasers and battleships. And they have fun with lasers and battleships, but ultimately it is about much more than that. It's a lot more serious than that. And so Gunbuster gets to be what appears to be this very light, fluffy, goofy thing, but also surprisingly deep and surprisingly I won't quite say complicated, but surprisingly interesting. There's a lot going on in Gunbuster, and the characters go on trajectories that you would not expect. Gunbuster is a lot of fun, and it manages to do that great thing that great anime often does, which is it combines drama and comedy and melodrama and character development, and all these things all balanced with each other really, really in a really pleasing way. Obviously, it's not going to be for everyone, but Gunbuster, for me, is one of those things I just sit down and I just enjoy. I will point out that it does veer into multiple different directions. Part of the reason is that they are trying to sort of play around with multiple different tropes. And so sometimes it's, again, sort of a school comedy. Sometimes it's much more of a drama. But for me, it works really, really well. Do be aware that, I don't think it's a spoiler to say that the ending gets a little experimental in terms of animation and such. So it will look and feel quite different at the end. I found that to be very visually interesting. Once you know it's happening, I don't think it's disappointing. I just realize it's going to look very different than what you're used to from the early episodes. And Gunbuster's just it's a really fun ride. that is Gunbuster. If you have not seen Gunbuster, oh nice, got to see them both. Yeah, Diebuster is a very different thing. I enjoyed Diebuster, but it's a very different thing. Whoops, that's not right. Sorry, folks. What's going on here? That's not what I wanted to show you. Ah, cameras everywhere. Sorry about that. So yeah, that is that. Hope folks get a chance to enjoy that. Before we get to the news, though, let me just take a quick look. Yeah, and that's a good point, Seth, is that the thing about Gunbuster, one of the things about Gunbuster is how there's a fair amount that happens in Gunbuster, but it's also kind of, there's not all that much that happens either in an individual episode. So a lot of it can fade. I remember watching it and thinking, wow, there's this is quite interesting. And then as time went on, there is stuff that kind of disappears. There's a lot of like interpersonal drama and that kind of stuff that is less as it doesn't quite stick with you the way this other stuff does. All right. You know what I think I'm gonna do? Let's go ahead and what? Y'all hear that? Okay. Sorry about that. Hold on. Okay. We'll get there. Technical issues. It's all fine. It's all good. I think we can do this. I think we're... Oh, we... Ah! Wow. Okay, hold on. Apparently there was a software update, and it caused everything to stop working. And I have to kind of reset everything for the news. Weird. Okay. We'll just have to do this. Oh, and we gotta move this over here too. Right. There we go. Okay. All right. I think this is gonna work. I think this is gonna work. Almost. Gosh. Hello and welcome to the latest anime news for the week ending July 18th, 2020. This week's news is more of a collection of smaller news pieces than any big announcements, so let's jump right in. First up, Netflix has officially announced its upcoming original anime, Dragon's Dogma, based on the video game franchise of the same name. It was originally revealed that Netflix intended to make an anime of the franchise back in March of 2019 when they announced their partnership with Anima, Sublimation, and David Production. At the time of that announcement, the service gave a list of properties and original concepts they intended to produce as anime through these partnerships, including, of course, Dragon's Dogma. This week, the official reveal of the series was given, including a key image, some screenshots, and a September 17th worldwide release date. Very exciting. As described by the original press release, the story follows a man's journey seeking revenge on a dragon who stole his heart. On his way, the man is brought back to life as an Arisen, an action-adventure about a man challenged by demons who represent the 7 deadly sins of humans. With themes like the 7 deadly sins and preventing the apocalypse, this series seems to be arriving at an appropriate time in the world. Netflix also announced an upcoming CG animated series this week, this one based on the independent comic book series Usagi Yojimbo. One of the longest independent serialized comic book series, Usagi Yojimbo began way back in 1984 and tells the story of Rabbit Ronin Miyamoto Usagi and other anthropomorphized animals in the early Edo period in Japan. The upcoming Netflix series will take place far in the future of the original comic and follow teenage rabbit samurai Yuichi, a descendant of the original Usagi, who leads a group of heroes. The series, titled Samurai Rabbit The Usagi Chronicles, will be produced by Gaumont, with Mumbai-based 88 Pictures as the CGI animation studio. Stan Sakai, the creator of the original comic books, will serve as an executive producer over the series, so that's a pretty good thing. Gotta admit, I'm very curious to see what Usagi Yojimbo will look like in CG. Next up, looking for a kaiju fix but not up to the drama of a whole Godzilla movie? How about a very cute and mostly harmless Chibi Godzilla? The first of a set of shorts featuring Chibi Godzilla debuted on YouTube this week, featuring the adorable Chibi Godzilla helping light the candles on a friend's birthday cake, with his fire breath, of course. The original Chibi Godzilla character was created to celebrate the character's 65th anniversary back in 2018 and make the giant radioactive monster a bit more approachable and easy to empathize with. And generally, a Chibi version is a pretty good way to do that. The character debuted in a picture book called Ganbare Chibi Gojira, or Do Your Best Chibi Godzilla. So, do your best, Chibi Godzilla. The new 30-second short episodes tell stories from Chibi Godzilla's daily life, where he lives in the home of office worker Satomi and visits his friends Chibi Ghidorah, Chibi Rodan, and Chibi Mothra, of course. A new episode will be uploaded to the official Godzilla YouTube channel every Wednesday, so check it out there for your weekly dose of cute monsters. One thing anime does pretty well is cute monsters, let's be honest. Now, last up in new anime announcements this week, well, not a new anime, but a new English dub for an old classic. Digital Sound Magic announced this week that it has produced an English dub for Jungle Emperor The Brave Can Change the Future, the TV anime special inspired by Osamu Tezuka's Jungle Emperor Leo manga. The special debuted on Japanese TV in 2009 and celebrated both the 50th anniversary of the Fuji TV network and the 80th anniversary of Osamu Tezuka's birth. Telling an updated take on Tezuka's classic Jungle Emperor series, this special follows Leo's life in the artificial Neo Jungle and his friendship with Kenichi, son of the CEO of Eternal Earth, who made the preservation of the animals possible, at least according to the description. Tezuka's original manga ran in Manga Shonen magazine from 1950 to 1954. After gaining popularity, it inspired a 65 to 66 anime series adaptation, which came to America under the name you all probably recognize, Kimba the White Lion. So hey, a bit more of that is not a bad thing. The brand new English dub of the special is now available to stream on Retro Crush. Doing some good work over there. Now, it's a good thing we've been getting more and more legal ways to read manga and light novels over the last few months and years, as it seems Amazon's Kindle might not be the most reliable method. As of this week, a number of light novels and manga have been unceremoniously removed from the Kindle reading service, sometimes without so much as a notification to the publishers even. Interestingly, it seems only specific volumes of some of the series have been removed. Apparently, the books were delisted by Kindle Content Review, so we can assume these particular volumes had content that fell outside of Kindle's content guidelines, whatever those are in particular for these kinds of things. J Novel Club explained that they only found out about the removals of their content from fan comments, and that after multiple attempts to reach out to Amazon, they weren't given any specific reasoning, so I guess it's left up to interpretation as to what exactly made those volumes non-Kindle appropriate. They also pointed out that the physical versions of the delisted titles are still available for purchase on Amazon. Gotta be honest, it sounds kind of like a rogue script running. Yen Press also told ANN this week that Amazon decided a number of their titles did not fall within their global content guidelines, including the popular No Game No Life novel series, Dark Horse Comics Oremo and Eromanga Sensei manga series have also been removed entirely. Volumes have been removed without warning throughout this week, so if you read any of your manga or light novels online through Kindle, you might want to download them now or pick up another reading service. Gotta be honest, it does sound, though, like this is something that will be rectified in the future. August 6th of this year will mark the 75th anniversary of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. In remembrance of the somber occasion, the Mainichi newspaper company has begun publishing an abridged English version of the Barefoot Gen manga series on their Mainichi weekly website starting on Friday. The abridged version shows select memorable scenes taken from the full English version, which is available. This digest version was previously published in print as well, and also includes special explanations for Japanese readers who are learning English. Interesting crossover there. The online series will have an installment posted each morning until the day before the anniversary and will remain online to read through August. Keiji Nakazawa's original Barefoot Gen manga series ran from 1973 to 1987 and tells an autobiographical story of the aftermath of the nuclear attack, providing insight into how the people of Hiroshima lived after the bombing. To quote, Mainichi explains that, quote, through publication of the manga, the Mainichi newspaper company hopes to further spread the messages no more Hiroshimas, no more Nagasakis, and no more Hibakusha, or people affected by the bombing, that Nakazawa, who had strongly resisted nuclear weapons, held close to his heart, end quote. Let's sincerely hope that message does spread. The link to the website featuring the English digest is in the video description as usual, so check that out sometime before the end of next month if you want to read it. Moving right along from some heavy news, to celebrate reaching 1 million subscribers, the Kadokawa Anime channel on YouTube announced this week that it will stream a special Kadokawa Anime Thanks Party on August 2nd, featuring a lineup of special guests, including voice actors and Anason performers. The free event will consist of 2 parts, a variety part where anime voice actors will participate in various challenges related to the number 100, since I suppose challenges related to 1 million would be more challenging, and a live part featuring live performances from anime music singers. Some of the featured voice actors will include Rie Takahashi and Yumi Uchiyama from Re:Zero, or Re:Zero, never quite sure, and Natsuki Hanae from many popular series, most recently the titular character of Appare Ranman. The second section will also feature performances from Konomi Suzuki and Nonok, both also from Re:Zero, Masayoshi Oishi from Nozaki-kun and Copcraft, and the group Luminous Witches, among several others. Sounds pretty exciting. The special will begin streaming at 5 p.m. Japanese Standard Time on the 2nd. So hopefully you'll be able to tune in to that if you're interested in it. Now, judging by the vast amount of anime merchandise and collaborations in the world, anime fans like to have their lives filled with as much of their favorite franchises as possible. And starting next week, those in the business world will be in no exception. A new column is starting up next week on the official Gundam.info website, featuring business tips and advice as seen through the lens of Mobile Suit Gundam. Entitled Business Tips Are in the Universal Century, Gundam Meets Business, this series of columns will feature advice from various authors on how to incorporate business principles featured in the Mobile Suit Gundam series into your real-life endeavors. Featured topics will include management, strategy, leadership, vision, professionalism, design, human resource development, and working styles. Because if there's any place where I think that there is divergence of style, that is definitely the characters of Mobile Suit Gundam. That's all the news for this week. Thanks for watching. Okay, that is kind of coming together. That the whole tech over there. The whole news thing is always a little bit weird, a little bit odd. We're still kind of making it all work. Oh gosh, okay, sorry. Again, beating tech into submission. That's absolutely correct. Alrighty, so that is the news. Tell you what, let's do. I think we should. We'll do a little bit of history. Let's do some history before we get to the otaku and get to those folks over there, because I think history is interesting, and we do have some definite history to talk about. Let's do that real quick. Welcome to This Week in Anime History, where we look at the history of anime as through the lens of this past week. And going all the way back to 1953, we have technically the world's first TV anime. Now this gets complicated. This is the first anime on TV as a regular series. It is not a weekly half-hour anime series. That was Astro Boy, Tetsuwan Atomu. But in 1953, we technically get the first TV anime, Mole's Adventure, which, of course, you can watch some of on YouTube. It's since been colorized, but it is out there. And it just goes to show there was animation on TV way back when in Japan. Moving forward quite a few decades to 1988, July 16th, 1988 brought us the premiere of Akira, the legendary anime film that made a lot of anime fans over in America in the early 90s and beyond. Akira is important because it was an anime aimed very clearly at a young adult audience, late teens, early 20s, and the fact that it was very, very high budget and very successful. Those two things are both important. You can be high budget, but then fail at the box office. But the fact that it was high budget and aimed at an adult audience and made a lot of money really opened the doors for a lot of higher budget, more adult-oriented anime in the late 80s, early 90s, and beyond. So Akira definitely helped the anime industry in a lot of ways in that sense. Really, really big deal. Also this week, in 1997, July 12th, brought us the premiere of Princess Mononoke. And I would argue this is probably Miyazaki's masterpiece. Everyone has their own opinions on what is a Miyazaki masterpiece. I like to see it that Miyazaki obviously does all of his family films, but Nausicaa was really the film that started his career in a big way in terms of the public consciousness. And Mononoke is really a restatement of the themes of Nausicaa in a more complex, multi-layered way. Nothing against Nausicaa, but Mononoke really feels like a more robust statement of the themes of Nausicaa. And apparently Miyazaki has said this himself as well. Although Miyazaki has said a lot of things, so I don't know about all that. But Mononoke was a big deal. Also, the first of Miyazaki's films to be broadcast in America in actual theaters, like officially. So it opened the way for Miyazaki to really make a big mark in the international market, especially the North American market. Start all of those all of those Ghibli films to get released through Disney and Miramax and such, all in America. So definitely a landmark moment in anime history. And then finally, it must be said, a year ago exactly was the Kyoto Animation fire. Sadly, a young man set fire to building number 1 at Kyoto Animation and caused a lot of injury and sadly death in that conflagration. It was a sad day, a terrible day, and that is something worth remembering. That tragedy happened, and Kyoto Animation today is thankfully recovering, starting to make more anime and starting to rebuild, and which is always what you're looking to see out of such things. So worth remembering. Obviously, our hearts go out to everyone who was affected by that, and that is a piece of history. All right. As difficult as it is to transition off of that, let us transition back to other things. I'd be curious to talk about that to JJ. I did not realize that Yobi was a high budget failure. That's I'm very curious about that one. I love Yobi. Oh my gosh. Speaking of which, let's do that. Let's switch over to Otaku and talk to the guys. So let's do that real quick. See if I can switcheroo all the things, get them on, get my stuff going, and hopefully this will all work. Everything's always a little complicated here. Oh, and I can switch this over a little bit. One moment. That's a little nicer. There we go. And yeah, I think that will work. And let's go ahead and transition over to that. Hello, guys. How you doing? I've got something going on here. One second. Apparently I did not unmute you. I should probably do that. One second. What's going on? Of course. Technical issues. What did I say? There's always some kind of technical thing. That's weird. So one moment. I set it to mute everyone, but now it won't let me unmute. Why can't I unmute? Oh, okay. One second. Okay, there we go. All right. So apparently, you can't unmute people in full screen. You have to unfull screen it, and then it'll let you do it. That makes sense, right?
Technology. Skynet is going active. It's just interrupts everything.
Absolutely. Speaking of Skynet, and speaking of computers going crazy, or at least things not working the way we wanted to, let's talk a little bit about Amazon Kindle delisting light novels and manga.
There's been a lot of buzz and talk about content censoring in social media platforms like Facebook. And when I saw that news piece, the first thought that ran through my head is, "Oh crap, not Kindle, please! Can you just let us actively as adults, buy things which are legal, and then we can, we'll police ourselves in that respect. I mean, obviously nothing that's grossly against any kind of international conventions, etc. But you guys don't need to go and wipe out stuff that's 18 plus if you get people to confirm they're 18 plus. You know what I mean?
Well,
it's like,
and here's the other weird thing. We were talking about this a little bit before. There's plenty of 18 plus stuff on Amazon. Like if you start skimming through all the light novels and manga on there, you'll find stuff a lot worse than a Ramo.
Well, Amazon, there's an entire business sphere that generates a generally large amount of income, and Amazon fully, completely, and totally ascribes to that commerce channel, and will sell you anything from anywhere across the world that is prurient interest to adults 18 plus. Why in the living hoo-ha would Kindle like knock some stuff out that has questionable content, but is not explicit.
So here's
and
what I
is
suspect.
Not against international conventions.
Here's what I suspect. It's like I said in the news. I think it triggered a bot. Some script ran to look for objectionable content, and there was some combination of things in there that was enough to trigger, 15-year-old plus this, plus that, and they're like, oh, nope, it's got to go. What I'd be curious to find out is if this is happening to anyone else. Like, is this, are other authors seeing this happen? And manga and light novels just happen to be caught up in this? Or not? I don't know.
I was to say, Manga Sensei and Oriemo. Yeah, okay, I can see how the bot picks that up, but remind me what part of No Game No Life fits in the same kind of category as Oriemo and, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Well, and that was the other interesting thing, is that Amazon reached out to them about No Game No Life and said that doesn't fall under guidelines. It was, let me just double check here.
Manga and Oriemo.
Yeah, so Oriemo and Manga have disappeared, or volumes of it have disappeared with no explanation.
Yeah, well, you can imagine what the explanation
Yeah, exactly.
Would be if you could fill in the blanks.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I don't know. Sometimes it could be. I mean, just like in the library. Sometimes some people find the weirdest things, and when you sit there and you're at a library and someone says, "Yeah, we're going to ban," somebody wants to ban Harry Potter, and you just go, "It's Harry Potter. Why would you ban that?" And then you come to realize that there's some woman, Karen, mother, father, authority figure, whatever, however you want to put it, out there who found issue with it. No play, no game, no life falls in that category of like, why would you want to get rid of this? But if you were, say, someone who firmly believed that video games were resulting of violence or caused violence, you could take that to another level. I mean, it's kind of a stretch, honestly.
Sure.
There are people out there who do, unfortunately, worked in the library, think that way, where they're just kind of like, well, I don't want my child to see this, which is actually fine, and actually shows that you're a parent who gives a darn about your kid.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? Don't put it onto other kids.
But I mean, this is one of those things that run it back to when we were all children.
Right.
That Catcher in the Rye caught a lot of crap.
Mm-hmm.
Of Mice and Men caught crap. I mean, these are classic works of literature.
Mm-hmm.
And you had the naysayers that said no, they shouldn't be in a library. These are things that will give terrible ideas. Okay. There are limits to what you can display. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
I totally fully understand that legally. Yeah. Again, international conventions with regards to human trafficking, child pornography, etc. All of this, they're well documented things. But there are controversial ideas that are presented in some context and formats that some object to, but you know what? You can't live in a cave.
No, you can't. You can't.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You can't live in a cave, because I was actually just thinking about when they tried to cancel out of the Pratt Library Captain Underpants, and why would you do that? And there's unfortunately there's just that person who does want to live in a cave.
So that is an interesting take, though. I hadn't even thought about that. I wonder if there were complaints. I wonder if folks reached out to Amazon to say, hey, this shouldn't be on here. And I mean, obviously, Amazon has kind of has both track records. Amazon is famous for kind of allowing everything, like the comments on their stuff. They say we don't censor comments. If you want to post whatever crazy comments you want, as long as it's not defamatory. We love 3 Wolf Moon and 2% Milk and all those crazy stories of all the weird comments on those. Whatever you want to sell on here, again, as long as it's not human organs. But then there was also the Brave New World story, So it's tough. And the reason I ran it off screen is because I wanted to bring up something that actually was a news story some years back. This book, Manga, 60 Years of Japanese Comics.
Oh yes.
This was the subject of a big censorship thing. Because someone came into a library and their 8-year-old or whatever had found it. And what's funny about the story is that they basically took it up, and it was on the shelves, and they took it up to the librarian and said, I think this should be, like, still carry it, but not on the shelves. Like, make it something that folks have to ask for. And the librarian complied, and that became a huge censorship news story. Now, when that came out, I happen to have a copy of that. I cannot show you the pages, but there are absolutely pages in here. Yeah. They're all about age comics. They're all about, gore and violence and all this stuff, and it's right there in the pages. So I remember seeing that and thinking, actually, yeah, I can totally understand somebody saying, still carry it, but maybe not where random 8-year-olds can pull it out and go, oh, So I think that is an interesting balance.
But this is always this comes down to the eternal slippery slope. It's like, is that something that you remove and wait for people to inquire about, or is that something that you specifically set in a young adult or an adult section? That, and I don't mean adult as an adult necessarily, but I mean something that it's got content that is not appropriate for an 8-year-old. Rather than just, sort of make it go away, because then, it makes me, what is the SOX, the anime where they deal with the world where
Shimoneta.
Shimoneta. You want to make sure that things stay in appropriate places and ways that people can encounter them, but at the same time you don't want to dumb down the entire experience so that by the time you're like 25 you're like, people have things under clothing. Oh my god. It's
to your point. To your point, Brent, I think I told you a story before about the Ghost in the Shell manga that I bought. So the libraries usually get rid of their books by selling them. They're surplus books and stuff. So they have these little book sales where you can buy the stuff for like $1 or $2. And the libraries often they have multiple copies of mangas, which is actually something that if you're a manga reader and you want a really cheap manga, go to public library book sales. You'll find all sorts of stuff. So anyway, I got there and I found the manga of Ghost in the Shell, like a really older, almost original print of the original work, and it was beautiful work. And I got it and took it home and was nonplussed to see that it was all in Japanese. So it was just like I have to look at the pretty pictures, but I couldn't really read anything. But
the slow translation
point, JJ,
process.
Translation, right. But to your point, JJ, of having things in the right place, this was in with the regular Dragon Ball, with Dragon Ball Z. It was with One Piece and stuff like that. And now if you know Ghost in the Shell in the manga, you know that he's it's very sexualized, and there's a portion in that book when you open it up where it talks about theoretically same-sex love scene in that. And so if you're a parent and a kid or picks it up, a kid picks it up and goes, hey, what's this, what's going on here, I don't get it, that can be something for a little bit of a problem for the parent. But there is a misunderstanding, and maybe this is translating over to Kindle. They're not really understanding what it is that they're presenting, what they're putting out there, and maybe somebody complained about it, and maybe they just need to readjust and just put the 18 warning on.
Yeah, and that's a good point.
Call it what it is.
There's a lot of manga that came out that didn't have any age restrictions back in the day. Where it's like, oh, Ranma 1/2, it must that must be cute. And then it's like, oh, maybe we should put a 13 plus, 15 plus, whatever.
Well, but I mean, the knee-jerk reaction to something that's out of context is a little too quick. At least in my opinion. And again,
I would agree. Yeah.
I hate being of the ilk where it's like, oh, I could, when I was 10, I could play outside after dark and nobody cared. No,
I ate lead paint. And nothing happened to me.
I was just fine. But you know what I mean. There's a lot to be said for the fact that you still have some generational cultural misunderstanding. So somebody, you know what I mean, somebody who has, for lack of a better term, weaned themselves off of Naruto and moved on to Death Note, or still, not weaned necessarily, but their entrepot is Naruto. They got into this with Naruto or with Pokemon or with something, and they've moved on and they're progressing. And you could be, given the opportunity to enter in a very young age, you could be moving on by the time you're like 12 into much more, interesting and in-depth kind of content and controversial content. And, a lot of the idea being like, let's dial back what people can get access to. It's, I think, a fundamental misunderstanding on the part of the parents that it's like, you want to think that your precious little 10 or 12-year-old is like one, that they need their diaper changed. The access to information and media through things like, I don't know, this magical little cube thing that I carry around all the time is so devastatingly amazing that you cannot presume necessarily age-appropriate content matches that age. That's something, you know what I mean, that you have to look at on a case-by-case basis. So just going off and being like, my little kid who's 12 years old, who can get Ghost in a Shell, who can watch Death Note and, like, understand what's going on. Not just be like, oh, that's a neat thing. Oh, look at that thing walking around. You know what I mean? They get the concept of it, and they are ingesting that, and they can, fully experience it. These people just knee-jerk reaction. Be like...
And the foundations for today's kids is much more deeper than it was for me or the parents, and so for what my parents would be, you were just playing Astro Boy in the background there, Brent, and it's that's something that would be, oh hey, this is what I grew up with, and you're saying kid is going to have a far better understanding of. Oh, that's a Shimigami. He's a god of death. So he's related to this. And I get that. There might be some gaps in the knowledge, the fundamental, foundation of understanding. There's a book that kills people. This is the guy who owns the book, but he's playing a game with this other guy. They'll get that part of it. You're right.
Right.
So,
and it's like...
because kids, this is one of the things I feel bad about my older sisters. She had two boys. I didn't have cell phones. My nephew's born. I mean, that's it's just instant. It's so they grow up. I guess they grow up a little bit more quickly. Than they did then.
And I guess that's the problem is that back when we were kids, back when you all were kids,
when dinosaurs ruled the land.
Well, that's the thing.
And the great sun god in the sky. No.
Kids today can stumble across, My Lover is a Tyrannosaurus Rex, romance novels.
But it's not even stumble across, Brent. But my nieces are right in the sort of the demographic that you would say that you don't really want. They're 12 and 14. They don't stumble across very much. They follow the breadcrumb trail because of their innate curiosity on certain subject matter.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so you can't really, and I get how Amazon wants to, dial things back. They want the Kindle to limit liability. But at the same time, all you got to do is just shift how you're doing this. And they're going to go, that breadcrumb trail is going to follow off to a third-party provider who is doing this, who hasn't gotten caught by the piracy police. You know what I mean? That's how it's going to go.
Or we could get the kids of today to read the original Hans Christian Andersen stories.
Well, yeah.
The original Brothers Grimm stories. How about those?
Yeah. I just watched The Little Mermaid, the anime, again for the first time in years the other night, and that's it's not Disney. Not Disney in the least.
Yeah. So.
Well, if you read Briar Rose, you know what I mean. It's like that's not how Disney did that.
No. Well.
No.
And the old fairy tales had very different purposes than Disney.
Right.
Telling very different stories. Speaking of telling different stories, and speaking also of online, let's talk a bit about Barefoot Gen. Yay!
Hang on, I need a fortification.
So this is the abridged version where the plane flies away and there's no bomb dropped and they live a happy life ever after, right?
Exactly.
And no one has any side effects, no cancer.
Well, no, the plane flies away, and they decide that this is not what should be done. The abridged version.
So for those curious, Barefoot Gen, manga about a young boy who lives in Hiroshima, Japan in 1945. So the news story this week is that to mark the 75th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima, there is going to be an English version of Barefoot Gen released on the Mainichi newspaper's website. New chapter every day, basically. Apparently, this is basically an adaptation that had already been done. So there was some abridged version of the English version of the manga that they had made, and now they are re-releasing that for free. It'll be available through August. Do you think anybody's going to read this who would not have read Barefoot Gen otherwise?
I think only if you had a teacher who would actually use this as a tool.
Yeah.
If a teacher were to use this as a tool, I think it would be useful as an abridged version. The theater I worked for, we did Romeo and Juliet and Macbeth for 7th and 7th graders. So it was definitely an abridged version of it, but it's still a useful tool, not just historically, but the all-important message of, just how awful this is. And it's not just about the bomb going off, it's, what happens afterwards.
Right.
I think it's a good tool, but I think in terms of just throwing it out there and will some person just go, oh, Barefoot Gen and pick it up and read it? I don't know. I'm leaning towards the fact that unless there's someone that's really into manga to begin with, pretty much anyone who enjoys this anime and stuff will have some knowledge of the name of it, even if they haven't read it. So maybe it would induce them to read it.
Well, that's the thing. I think you're right. I think this would be a great teaching tool because an abridged version, it wouldn't do as well to deliver the startling impact as you would by going through the original. So I think yes, as a teaching tool, I suppose as a means of getting you into like actually looking at the manga, getting a look at the anime, that might be a great sort of way to get that in there. That here's like a sort of primer on it, and now you've been primed on it, you understand the highlight parts of it, and now at your leisure, by your interest, you can then go and delve deeper into it.
Yeah, I can
do a deep dive.
Yeah, I can see fans who've heard of Barefoot Gen, but haven't come across it yet, just haven't gotten that, gotten there yet. We'll be like,
kind of like it's kind of Grave of the Fireflies is, everyone knows about it, but until you actually see it, or if you watch this channel and watch Brent do a panel discussion on it and just go, oh.
Time to take a swig.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the thing. It's like that. It's always hard to appreciate since, our intersection with those things has happened at some time in the past. It's always hard to appreciate how going forward with somebody who is 16, 17 years old, 15, 14 years old,
Yeah.
that they, you know what I mean? Their means of getting into something that's that heavy, there isn't a Cold War anymore. The sort of saber rattling that you get out of North Korea is consistent and yet not so world ending.
Yeah, it doesn't feel real.
Right. So that, former, Cold War warriors, it's like, wow, Grave of the Fireflies and Barefoot Gen, those are things that are like, wow, this was a potentiality that was daily, if not monthly. Yeah. And it's like now people who are younger intersecting that, I would imagine that things like economic, disenfranchisement and other, more personally social and closely social issues are more of a touchstone for them than the concept of massive war and nuclear annihilation.
Well, and Barefoot Gen's also notable because it's actually the only piece of media I can think of that actually the one of two that treats the bombing of Hiroshima 3 without sensationalizing it. Right? Like every other version I've seen, it is some big apocalyptic thing that's going to happen, and we got to save the world. Barefoot Gen, and actually, it's in this corner of the world, and
in this corner of the world, I was about to say,
and a town of, a quiet town, a country of cherry blossoms, whatever that is. The manga by the same person who.
Okay, the book you lent me.
Yes, that one. Yeah. Okay. The town of evening calms.
In this corner of the world was same author. Yeah.
But anyway, it is a fact. It is a factual event that occurred that we are documenting in those works.
Which heaven knows in those you do not need to really play what happened. I mean, it's just horrible what happened. So. Yeah. The thing speaks for itself.
It's just, it gives you an idea of just, it's not just the bomb people died. Oh, there's some arbitrary thought of you die of cancer, and this shows you people dying of cancer, and shows you how quickly and we how we look at it, and then it also the same dimension at the same time. You have all these impromptu government courts and commissions that are so corrupt or so inept or so unable to do anything. This catastrophe that no one else in the world has dealt with before or since. I mean,
and also
the idea of this is not just made up. What happens if the nukes fly and Washington D.C. blows up? No, this happened.
Yeah.
These are results of what happened, and it's the result of people not fully understanding what was happening at the same time.
Well, it's also the honesty of not only the inhumanity of the experience, but also a lot of the inhumanity of people in the experience. You know what I mean? It's like if you think of Grave of the Fireflies, you know what I mean? The callous disregard for other human lives.
You literally want to
the people who do this
and go,
I mean, not the people that are dropping the bombs and flying away and being like, that's inhuman, but the people who are on the ground. Having just finished Japan Sinks 2020, disasters bring out the best in humanity and the worst in humanity.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a man-made disaster. It can be a natural disaster. And man's inhumanity to man becomes a naked and damn uncomfortable and unbearable thing to watch sometimes.
Yeah.
So,
including disasters like, say, Godzilla. Right? Because we have
I'm cute as hell.
Think of the Blue Oyster Cult song Godzilla, where the line goes, "Oh no, there goes Tokyo, go go Godzilla."
Oh no, there goes Tokyo, here comes Godzilla.
Horrible.
And that's a good song.
Yeah,
that's right.
So we got news this week, because there's no good way of transitioning out of Barefoot Gen about Chibi Godzilla. there's a new Chibi Godzilla anime series. It is about Chibi Godzilla, Chibi Rodan, Chibi Ghidorah, and Chibi Mothra, of course, who all live with an office worker named Satomi, because why not? Actually, no, I think
Chibi Mothra like the size of like an actual moth, like a giant moth. Like
well, it's about this. Yeah, it's about actually,
just beautiful.
Actually, I
Chibi
should say,
Godzilla, put that Kindle down.
Yeah. No Aramanga Sensei for you. So apparently the character debuted in a picture book back in 2018. And here's my question. Do you think, like, Chibi Godzilla is a thing that can work? Like, is that an effective avenue for merchandising Godzilla? Or does it seem like it's, going a bit too far with that franchise?
Don't you remember the 80s cartoon with Godzilla and Godzuki?
Oh, God. I do.
Do you not recall this? This was a thing that was made and merchandised.
I remember, and that's why I'm asking the question.
God, I've never heard that. The Scrappy Doo of Kaiju. Oh, that's good. That's wicked brilliant.
That is actually true. You got it. And that was the thing, is that I don't recall that doing very well.
No, but it did. It did a thing. Mm-hmm. It was on TV. It ran its whatever season. I don't think it ran 2 seasons, but it ran its American cartoon season and then passed off into history. So it was enough to get funding, enough to get sponsorship to happen. It was a Hanna-Barbera cartoon.
I'm double-checking right now. It had 2 seasons. Thank you very much.
Oh, see? There you go. Will Chibi Godzilla make it? Oh, hell yeah.
Mm-hmm.
At least 2 seasons.
There we go. It looks like there were total of 26 episodes, 2 13-episode series. Hanna-Barbera production. I'm scrolling through now.
Okay, so it was Hanna-Barbera.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it was definitely Hanna-Barbera.
So yes, I think depending on how it looks, I would imagine you're going to end up with a fairly decent-selling plushie line. Mm-hmm. You probably won't have too many figures necessarily because it would be too cutesy, but you're going to have a lot of keychains. You're going to have a lot of you may even have a series of T-shirts, etc. for Chibi Godzilla, Chibi Mothra. It's going to be a cute little whatever. It's going to appeal to the kawaii set, and they're going to snap it up.
What I would like to see, though, is the transition of Chibi Godzilla when he hit his teen years and decided to become
the pimply Godzilla.
Godzilla Shonen.
Pimply, angry,
need to
very,
see this.
very angry Godzilla. He was turned down for prom. Oh, that Godzilla.
Yep. Bad teeth.
What happened when he was I think you and where was the falling out with Rodan?
Yes.
Well, see, that's going to be where that you just insert Godzilla into Squidbillies. So you get the pimply angry. Get your hands off the trail. That's how that works right there. You can just segue that right in.
Perfect.
Hilarious.
So Chibi Godzilla works, and also we had another odd crossover of franchises this week. Gundam meets Business.
I just how do you why? I mean, at some point in time, they're going to be the people young enough to have grown up entirely on Gundam, and Pokemon, Naruto, etc. They're adults and they're doing things. So
that's a 40-year-old franchise.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be familiar to them, but why?
Well, it's kind of like you have to incorporate morale boosting by slapping. Slapping arm around, right?
True.
We'll be happy. You will do better. You will meet your goal. There you go.
Stop complaining.
But right, stop complaining. You work hourly. Come on.
Yeah.
But as I was saying earlier, there's this isn't the first time I've seen something like this. This is like I said, Crimson Tide actually has a lot of people who work in retail. There's a scene in Crimson Tide where they tie it into a book called The 1 Minute, where Denzel Washington talks about the Silver Surfer. You know how the two guys are fighting in the alley at the sub, and it's over Kirby's Silver Surfer and Mobius's Silver Surfer. It's how Denzel Washington went in and said, "This is what you're doing wrong. You're a good employee, but you're throwing it all away." And reads him out, tells him what he's done wrong, breaks him down, but builds him back up by saying, "Any idiot knows that it's the Kirby Silver Surfer is the real surfer." So but I can see elements of that. I mean, joking around, you can see getting ahead by shooting your sister in the face, or not your sister, your zombie ally in the face, things like that. But there is, when you watch Gundam, there are
and incidentally, Brent does not advocate shooting anybody in the face for dispute resolution. Just make that clear.
HR will have a problem with that. HR will have a problem. Yeah. But no, there is. I feel that in Gundam there are. Particularly when you're looking at zombies and how they operate. If you look at Rambazal and how he operates and how he gains loyalty and why people are loyal to him, and especially Rambaral, people how do you manage people? How do you get people to do what you want? And that's what management is how do I get my team to be effective and do these things?
Well, have you seen either the original Legend of the Galactic Heroes or the reboot from a couple years ago?
Bits and pieces.
Saw the original.
You know what I mean? It's got a lot of that management of not only the micro space but the macro space and the greater management and big space. The greater management issues with regards to directing people and campaigns and tactics and strategy. So it's like I find Gundam is obviously the most popular thing to choose to that has those elements to use it for business. Having seen some other things that I would think probably segue in better, they're not as popular. So I kind of get that.
How about Sardines and Char Ensemble actually?
Okay. Well, I was thinking Ishizoku reviewers and customer service. But that's a retail scape. That's not necessarily.
True. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's not necessarily trading company scape. So.
Mm-hmm. I just want to see someone pull up the projector
if you go into your grocery store, you're going to find this sardine can called Oscars.
Right.
The sardines.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the licensees of license holder of or the people in charge of the licensing of Gundam in Japan have this tin that had Char Ensemble's face on it, and said it's like basically Gundam sardines, and
Sardines.
Sold out. Speaking of Amazon, sold
I
out
think
on
Brent said that before. Sardines.
So they sold out in So I don't know. Maybe you got a point that there may be a popularity issue as opposed to actual.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're right too. I think when you look at the topics that they list, working styles, that's definitely a thing in Gundam. There are very different personalities in there that all have to mesh. Human resource development, seeing how those characters evolve over time. Professionalism, Amuro, Ray, all the way up. Get some Shinji Ikari in there too. Vision, executing to that thing. We got to get this thing done. And actually, Vision's kind of interesting because one of the things Gundam gets into is this difference between short-term and long-term thinking. That very often the crew of White Base is like, why do we have to do this thing? Why are we going from here to here? Why are they giving us all these orders? And it's not until 3 episodes later that it is part of this larger strategy, and this needs to be here, that needs to be there.
Long-term strategic goals, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it's one of those things where I think obviously it is more that Gundam it's like Star Trek, right? It is a name that has name recognition.
Yeah.
Right.
But also it fits enough that it doesn't feel like a completely ridiculous combination of things.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess.
like you can go there.
I guess.
Well, and look at all of the manga guide to astrophysics, the manga guide to mathematics, right? Like there's
Right.
obviously that synergy there.
Right.
So where was
Well,
that when I was in high school?
I know.
I just
Um,
had
I
Cliff's
would've done
notes. That's all I had.
Who is Cliff, by the way? I always want to know who that was. You know,
Obviously,
Cliff?
somebody who made a fantastic amount of money in the pre-internet days.
That's why he was at Cheers all the time. That's why he was at the bar.
Yep. Hey,
He
Cliff.
made all the money off of. Yeah, that makes sense now. Gotcha.
Someone who has never been in my living room. You ever see that episode?
No, I haven't.
He was on Jeopardy with Alex, and he said they listed 3 names of the Rat Pack, and the only answer he could come up with the final Jeopardy was 3 men who have never been in my living room.
That's probably the completely correct answer, though. Right?
Yeah, technically
Can't
true.
prove not. So.
Can't prove it.
Gotta love it. But yeah, that is absolutely it's absolutely a thing that's happening. So we'll see where that's going. Cool. Those were all the news items we wanted to talk about this week. Is there anything else you guys wanted to bring up?
Can't think of anything off the top of my head. Oh, the CG Yojimbo.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Usagi Yojimbo.
Yeah.
So you
Again, as
Jimbo.
we discussed earlier, all I could imagine is Toshiro Mifune, Seven Samurai, Rashomon, being Usagi Yojimbo.
Yeah.
That would be awesome.
That would have been amazing, but
Would have been epic.
unless anybody's got like a revive crystal or a resurrect crystal, I don't think we're going to be able to get him back for that.
Yeah.
It's already a done deal.
No, not anytime
No.
soon. I talking about history and how far things have come. I remember when it came out at the same time as the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comics came out. At the same time, there's actual some limited sharing of characters between the two series, and for at first it was like descendants of Usagi Yojimbo were interacting with like Leonardo and all the other turtles. Then it got to some of the minor characters, and there were actual storylines that crossed over.
Well, wasn't there an action figure that was released with the turtles that was a samurai rabbit?
Yes,
Yeah,
and it was a descendant. That was Isato Usagi.
I don't remember. I just a friend of mine who's
There was, yeah.
collected that. There was a samurai rabbit, and like Usagi Yojimbo, he had his ears pulled up with a little bind at the top of him.
I think it was Usagi. That was actually my introduction to Usagi Yojimbo. Was there was an episode of the Turtles animated series where they go through a portal into the world of Usagi Yojimbo, and it's a whole big crossover thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
I just remember seeing that figure and seeing Usagi Yojimbo and being like, wait a minute, how's that?
But yeah, so Netflix is doing a CG series based on Usagi Yojimbo. No news yet on like length, number of episodes, all that kind of stuff. Will be done by 88 Pictures as the CG animation studio, which sounds familiar, and I'm going to actually look that up right now.
I'm keeping my fingers crossed that they'll actually do good CG.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is Agretsuko, is that CG, isn't it?
Is it?
Not sure.
I think it is.
Elements are.
Well, I think it's all digitally rendered. I mean, I don't. It's not sort of like Reboot, where it's all like very evidently CG, but it's all certainly digitally rendered. So they do it at least in that minimum style. I'm perfectly fine with that. It'd be nice to see if it was.
I'd go with that.
I'd say it'd be nice to see if it was more than 12 minutes.
So I think this is CGI in the like full 3D CGI sense. They worked on
could be dodgy.
So they worked on Troll Hunters along with Dream Hunters animation. And other than that, I mean, apparently they are a pretty new company, 2017-ish, 2016 I think is around when they got started. I'm not seeing much else about them online, I will admit, which might be one of the reasons why they're kind of chosen for this.
Well, this could be one of those moments where they're proving themselves, so they're going to throw a tremendous amount of great effort at it.
See here.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah.
That's one of the things I have a problem with Netflix lately is that they give us these series, like Reboot with the Ghost in the Shell reboot and stuff like that, and the new series and the animation is certain elements in certain moments it works, but a lot of the time it doesn't, and so I'm just kind of hoping the technology will be better because this conversation happened back in the 1970s when they're going, we're going to do the animation this way, please make it better, can you make the animation better? So the technology will eventually get better, so hopefully this will start with this.
Totally.
Well, again, it depends on how much cash Netflix is willing to throw at it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If they throw enough at it, then the minimum technology we have right now should make it fairly decent.
Well,
if they're willing to throw a lot of money at it, they might be able to get a really good product.
to an extent. I mean, it's all about how much skill you have, right?
Right.
So that's going to be the interesting question. And what intrigues
me
about this,
the next Akira.
It could. And that's kind of an interesting question. Is I think the good news is that Usagi Yojimbo is, I think, a good show to do that with, in the sense that this is not a major beloved property where millions of people are going to be expecting it to be the next Akira, but it's quirky enough and it's different enough that you can play around with it. You can you can take a more samurai movie take with it. You can be more cartoony if you want to. So you can kind of, whatever you're good at, you can kind of lean it in that direction, hopefully.
Mm.
Who knows?
Or you could just totally jump the shark and crash and burn.
Absolutely.
You never know.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff on Netflix that is not the best stuff in the world.
No. No, but it's content, and they have it on there, so they can claim, as your little infographic part at the beginning of the stream said, how many shows are on Crunchyroll. It's like, well, how many of them are worth being on Crunchyroll? There's probably more than a handful that are probably like total crap, but they're on there, and that's content. Yep. What's the answer to that?
Oh, I believe. How many anime are on Crunchyroll? I think
it's not 1,000. It's got to be 600, right?
I actually, dang it, 1 second. I had that on a list
I answered
somewhere.
C.
Yeah.
C, that I'll never get to the end of my queue, so it doesn't matter.
That's the thing. I have the number on here somewhere. It might be over 1,000.
Really?
I can find it. 1 second. I actually have a whole website for this.
Pre-Funimation join or post-Funimation split?
I think just just as of a particular time. Let's see if these pages load.
Because I know once Funimation left, things like Iora. Oh God, what the hell's the one Iora? She's working at her grandmother's inn, Ryokan.
Hanasako Iroha.
Ah, there we go. Thank you. That one they pulled.
Oh, really?
They sent a hot notice that said, "Listen, these are the such and such and such and such that are not going to be a part of our catalog anymore." Mm-hmm. And that was exactly at the time the whole Funimation deal split. Mm-hmm. And that went off to Funimation, and Crunchyroll continued on its own. So,
yep. Why can't I find that number? It was out here somewhere.
They're hiding it.
They're hiding it. They don't want us to know. They made a big deal of it at one point. And again, this might be one of those things where it's changed so much. As of, let's see here,
2012.
As of May 2019, there were 40,000 episodes on Crunchyroll.
Wow. Wait a minute,
Yeah.
40,000 episodes or 40,000 series?
40,000 episodes.
Episodes.
Yes.
So of which 29,000 are all One Piece,
Yeah.
Naruto, and Bleach.
This is true.
Aha!
Um,
And
so-
Gintama. Sorry, and there's
Mm,
Gintama in there
I
as
think
well.
that's absolutely true.
And I just started watching Ranma 1/2,
Oh, no.
and apparently
Yeah.
there's 161 of those.
You
So-
can get
Wow.
sucked into that whole that route.
Hey, yeah, I think I'm five episodes in, and I'm like, oh, I could like want to see where this goes, and then I saw the absolute episode count. I'm like, it's gonna be like
keeps
years
going.
before I get anywhere, and it's still not gonna end, is it?
It keeps going. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it dearly, but
Mm.
it's going.
I give you
You
another.
never get any resolution.
No. I can give you some other numbers about Crunchyroll, though. As of May 2019, there were 2 million paying subscribers out of about 50 million registered users.
Okay.
And as of a few months before that, about 12 million monthly active users. So pretty decent numbers there. Their estimated monthly revenue as of 2017 was about $7 million a month. And
What was it?
$7 million a month they were making
Okay.
revenue. Let's see here. And then the percentage of Crunchyroll subscribers under the age of 35, perhaps not surprisingly, about 75%.
Oh.
I thought there'd be more than that. The median age of a Crunchyroll free viewer is 18. And according to Crunchyroll, again, as of March 2020, as of March 2019, pardon me, the percentage of the world's anime that is offered on Crunchyroll, and I think that means the percentage of the percentage of world anime offered on Crunchyroll, they claimed in March 2019 was 90%. I don't believe them.
No, I'm pretty sure I know that's not the case. As I've seen a lot of stuff at a lot of different providers that's nothing that's ever on Crunchyroll.
They're prolific, but
Yeah. I would assume that is like 90% of what is maybe available streaming at the time? Like currently broadcast?
I would imagine it's 90% of what they are allowed to actually license.
Mm-hmm.
So out of the 100% of all the licenses that they could acquire, that they are allowed to acquire by providers, they have 90% of all of the licenses that are available.
And if this was with Funimation, that's 90% of all of the North American anime licenses.
Yeah.
That would make sense.
Yeah, and it's like not that doesn't represent 90% of all of the content of everything everywhere.
Yeah, no, that's 90% of Verve and High Dive and Hulu.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, this is one of those things where it's like, The Simpsons made a joke about you can make numbers to mean anything. Three-quarters of all people know that.
Right.
It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, this is one of those things where if somebody came up to Crunchyroll and said, we've got 10 anime, and you're only allowed to license 9 of them, that they could then turn around and say, out of the 100% that we were offered to license, we've licensed 90% of them. Be like, that's only 9. That doesn't represent global. That just represents what you can get your hands on.
There was a news story when some university, their math department went co-ed. There were certain professors at the time, in the 60s, who were very much against this, and so they leaked a story to the press that marriages amongst staff members in the math department had increased 33% that year. There were 3 people working in the math department, and one of them got married.
Yep. Facts and figures are freely adjustable depending on your perspective. Yes.
Yeah. Cool. All right. I think that handles that. I think we covered that pretty darn well. Just checking the chat here real quick. Usagi Yojimbo is a very unusual comic, I think. It is trying to be kind of a parody of samurai films. It's also very much an indie comic from the 80s. So it's an acquired taste. It's like a fine wine.
If you're a history buff, you like me. It's
All right.
My degrees in, but if you're a history buff and you want to know a little bit, just have an idea of feudal Japan, it actually does a pretty good job.
Oh, cool! I did not know that.
In terms of, as a matter of fact, it got 1 or 2 Parents' Choice Awards because it showed in detail and correctly a pottery ritual and there's another ritual that I'm blanking on. I want to say it's tea ritual.
Tea ceremony.
Tea ceremony. But they talk, but the series, before I got into anime, my gateway was comic books. So when I was reading the comics, it's just very interesting. Even though it is definitely a parody of samurai movies, there is a lot of what they talk about. They give you a kind of good roundabout idea of what the Bushido code is. There, in terms of like the architecture and what they wore, was actually pretty close, pretty accurate.
Wow, that's really cool. I may have to go back to it then. That's cool.
And when you talk about pottery, you're talking about the thing where it's like you take broken pottery and you fuse it with gold to bring it like back into shape and emphasize
things like that.
beauty.
And the actual, the part of it is that, but if I remember correctly, it was actually more along the lines of actually creating, if I remember the storyline correctly, it was creating a vase, a sake vase. And it's there is a ceremony behind that. And the sake vase is not just a vase, but it's also the box that you also serve the sake in. So there's things like that.
Interesting. Cool. Yeah. Sweet. All right. Yeah. Now, and knowing is half the battle. G.I. Joe.
Go Joe.
One of my early internet memories is stumbling across some of the not earliest internet memories, because anyway, earliest YouTube memories was some of the G.I. Joe parodies they did, where they would recut all of those sequences into very different stories than actually aired on American
Very
television.
different.
Yes.
Well, I think it was Robot Chicken, where it's like they had done something that was G.I. Joe parody, and like G.I. Joe, America's most elite force with the least oppressive dress code. Like, wow, you're right. Like, nobody has the same outfit at all. Neat.
Oh, hey, did you see the Toys That Made Us episode on G.I. Joe?
No.
I'm meaning to watch that.
So the Toys That Made Us, for those not familiar, is a Netflix series about toys, where each episode is a deep dive on a particular toy, My Little Pony, etc. And the one on G.I. Joe is just great because they get all these people who are like, here's what we actually did to come up with this stuff. And G.I. Joe is absolutely just, okay, how can we make this toys as easily as possible? Like, it's just straight up. Like, there is no attempt to make lore, to make it complicated. Like, it was just purely, merchandisability. And they said that was
basically the Bandai model, like, hi, we just need something to sell things. Yep. Can you just craft something around it that we can mold and sell in plastic?
Well, and they said one of the problems was that they got caught up in something that Bandai was able to avoid, which was that it was literally just come up with new stuff all the time, just new toys, new ships, new characters, and so forth. And after a while, everyone got confused. Like, the kids had a difficult time because they love this character, and that character would disappear because they weren't supporting that anymore because they had new characters to sell to you.
Right.
And there's always something new coming on. There's always some new vehicle to buy. The vehicles had to get more complicated. You got things like the U.S. flag. There was it
Oh.
the like was it
There's
6 foot?
There's a place in Roanoke that has the flag.
Oh, nice.
And it's like a ping pong table size freaking boat. It's freaking amazing. And it's out of box.
Sure,
and they still want like a ridiculous amount of money for it.
Well, that's
Makes sense because
Damn, you
nobody
guys
can afford it.
Well, and that's actually one of the
Have
things.
you guys ever had the original G.I. Joe dolls?
Oh yeah.
The 6-inch.
The
12
original
big
ones.
12
No,
guys
no,
with the
no.
real hair.
Yeah, with the hair, yeah.
Yeah.
And the Vietnam backstory with the little record that came with it.
No. Wow.
About 78, actually.
I've seen those.
So it
but-
came with a little comic book, and it came with like you just sat them into this single man like tank thing that you can sit them in and push them around. But yeah, it's it reminded me of the $6 Million Man toys. But anyway,
Oh, absolutely.
There you go.
it's so different. It's so different that the toys went from this like big bulky thing, with actual clothes that you actually had to put on, and they were snap buttons. It wasn't Velcro at that time, and now
They were
and then it turned
cloth.
into, and it had the kung fu action grip. For that,
That's right.
the hands were like this, like just like that, and you could just like you could hang, you shinobi, hang there. And they went into the to the little tiny dolls for the comic books.
Yep.
And one of the things I stopped doing after a while, because I actually did buy them. It wasn't as much of as a collection as just to kind of play around with them. And the reason why I stopped doing it at such a young age was because what makes this guy special? You can kill Cobra Commander with a lawn dart. Okay.
Damn jarts, they've killed more people than that.
My favorite moment from G.I. Joe, and I may have mentioned to somebody at one point, is I think from like their first miniseries. And it just goes to like, to me, like the best of the writing of that show, because Destro is climbing up like, the Andes Mountains or something with this giant train of supplies going up, and they go up this windy rocky road to this giant rock palace that has like snakes as towers and all this stuff, and he goes up to a drawbridge and he he puts his handprint on there. Totally puts his hand. Oh no, there's a snake mouth. He goes up, the mouth opens, he puts his hand in as a handprint to go inside, and then the porters all like scream in terror and run off, and he goes inside and goes into like the big throne room. Cobra Commander is there and turns around and goes, Destro, you are late. And Destro replies, we were delayed trying to get to this ridiculously overcomplicated hideout.
Called it like it was.
It's like they're the writers saying this is absurd, but we're going with it.
Well, did you ever see the episode with the window wiper?
No, I don't think. I mean, maybe that was a long time ago.
Oh my goodness, it was. I think it stood as one of the better GI Joe. We recognize that this that what we're doing is serious work. Like, we're getting paid for this, but that all of this stuff is absolutely ridiculous. So you just have somebody who keeps calling them, it's the window viper. And they're like, oh my gosh, who is this? Is it a new assassin? Who is this? 127. And then they investigate and they like defeat Cobra at like some coordinate that's like 127 or something to do with the time at 127. Cobra Commander's all freaked out. Like, how do they know what we're doing? Why are they following us? And the dude's a window wiper. He's just a window wiper. He's just got this accent, and he's just trying to tell them on like the answering machine that he's going to be there at like 127,
on a Wednesday, and that he's bringing the truck, and that he's going to have his equipment with him. And like all hell breaks loose with G.I. Joe as they're all trying to figure out what's going on. They keep intercepting Cobra's secret operations. And it's just hysterical because it's like, wow, this is your writing staff being like, every week we make something stupid happen and you guys buy it. And here's an example of a complete episode, self-contained, where it's like, yes, everything is ridiculous, and this is how this goes. It was awesome.
There's a great behind the scenes on. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to ask, do you from the comics, do you remember where Cobra Commander's town of origin is?
No,
not a clue.
Springfield, Virginia.
Really?
Yeah. Your neck of the woods.
That explains a lot. There's a great behind the scenes on Transformers. I forget if it was this show or not, where they talked about how like they had a system for writing that show. Like they split up the episode and they would say, okay, in the first 3 minutes you set up the concept of it and something happens, and then for the next 4 minutes this you do this, and there's this precise formula all the writers were expected to follow. Just because they were producing so many episodes, they were just like, this has to be a factory, and that allowed them to have however many writers they had working on that thing, just churning out scripts.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's frightening.
They got paid in like a peso. They probably got paid squad.
Yeah.
Hey, if they got paid in Transformer toys, classic Transformer toys, they would be billionaires by now.
Mm-hmm.
All you got to do is go and look at some of those original series Transformer toys on eBay, and you can see the ridiculous prices that people are willing to pay for new in box. Well, old in box. It's not new anymore.
Yeah. Was it Soundwave? He was a cool one. Of course, I always wanted Megatron because of the gun thing.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't want Starscream, which was basically a Bandai Veritech Valkyrie.
I know, right?
I mean, the fun part is when you see some of the weird boxes that were like off license.
Yeah.
So they're not Starscream, but they're not Valkyries either.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, you can't tell. I mean, it's so off-brand. I can't remember where I saw one. It was a Comic-Con. It wasn't a anime con, but it was a Comic-Con, and it might have been GalaxyCon. But it was this weird, like, it was like plane transforming fighting robot. It was like some weird description of it. But it was like, it was colored kind of like Starscream if you mix it with Roy Foker's Skull Squadron Valkyrie. Where it's just like, who did you buy this from? Did you hand paint this?
I think Carl Maychek may have talked about this at some point. I remember hearing somebody talk about this, saying this is actually one of the things that a lot of folks didn't realize back in the 80s when they were licensing all this stuff and bringing it over, is how like everything was going through China or Korea, other countries in some cases back then. And so, if they were copying, whatever mecha that you had sub-licensed your anime from, then they could also copy the toys you were making off of your show. So, Robotech had all this problem where there were all these, knockoff Robotech toys because there were Macross toys and other things. They're just kind of being, tossed off the factory in some, in Guangzhou somewhere. Yeah.
Yep. And I've seen some of them, and they're freaky as hell. I mean, weird stuff. But I never saw any knockoff GI Joes, like the little plastic figures. I mean, those they must have been manufacturing them in such quantity anyway that it didn't really matter.
Yeah, they're probably out there, but they got overwhelmed by GI Joe itself.
Yeah, I mean, they merched the crap out of that. I mean, you really, as a kid, you don't need all the little Cobra guys. You just need like 2 of them to play the bad guys. You don't need 30 of them, but they manufactured 30 of them.
Yep. Well, and lest we forget, there were certainly plenty of generic U.S. action heroes.
Yeah.
You know, and oh gosh, the generic transforming robots. Those were just, you know, dollar bin everywhere.
Yeah. The
You-
dollar bin
you
before you had
untran-
dollar
you-
store.
Transform them, and then for about seconds, had your perfect transformation from vehicle to robot, and then the arm falls off.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It never works ever again.
Mm-hmm.
Ever.
Well,
Yeah.
that was the thing I liked about my Go Lion set was like it was 5 lions and you made them into Voltron.
Mm-hmm.
It worked.
right.
It worked great.
Mm-hmm.
I never could get my hands on. Was it Mazinger? What was the one that was all like 30 different little vehicles that they co-opted into Voltron?
That was also Vehicle Voltron.
Yeah, I can't remember what one that was.
It's
but it's like
That one.
I have. A
I
copy
could
of it.
never
It's terrible.
find it, but it required like 30 different small transformations to make Voltron.
Die Rugger.
It's just like, what was it?
Die Rugger was the original
Die
TV.
Rugger.
Yeah,
Oh, that.
the original series was based on.
I forgot
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
The Duggards. No, I didn't say 30 children. Oh, I'm so topical by like 10 years ago.
Yeah, I went back and tried to watch Die Rugger. That is a tough watch. That is a very specific '80s show. Ooh.
But I mean, there was something today. Somebody was asking a question about trying to figure out what figures in somebody's collection. Somebody had passed away, and one of them was an Orgroid from Orgus.
Wow.
For the love of me, I've never seen Orgus.
Okay.
But I went downstairs in the basement and took a picture of my Orgus in its box that I bought 30 years ago and has sat in a box ever since.
Mm-hmm.
And sent that off and said, that thing in that picture on the left-hand side is this thing in this box.
Mm-hmm.
So there you are. I haven't heard anything back, but it's, you know what I mean? It's one of these things where it just, you know, I don't know that I'd ever go and find Orgus to watch it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going to go, you know, the Duggards, the robot version. I'm not going to go probably try and find that because Go Lion was more than enough for me.
Good news.
Voltron was more than enough for me.
Discotheque released Orgus on DVD September 29th, 2015.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go.
Wow. It only took this many years to do that.
Yeah.
On
well,
DVD, which means it's out there in the world
yes.
in other forms. So,
well, it
It'll
was-
be in the bin at Comic-Con next to the knockoff, next to the Roy Valkyrie knockoff.
Exactly.
yeah, exactly.
And I think the problem too is that Orgus was part of the Super Dimension trilogy. So those not familiar, this company called, was it Big West? Yeah. They produced Super Dimension Macross, Super Dimension Orgus, and Super Dimension Southern Cross. The title is the only thing connecting them. But they were all sort of part of this production trilogy, which I'm sure raised the licensing cost of Orgus. Because of the prestige in Japan and so forth. So
Well, I was gonna say Orgus, the actual mech is it's a really cool mech. I mean, it's fighting robot. It's it converts into you know sort of like the Valkyrie. You have the actual fighting robot stance. Then you've got something that's it's ship like flying vehicle aircraft. And then, as opposed to having the Gerwalk mode, where it's kind of like half plane, half robot, this thing, the Orgroid, forms more of like a tank. So it's like the legs move in a certain way, and you've got wheels and stuff where it sort of slides more tankish in that respect. But
so, shall I give you the resume of the mecha designer on Orgus?
sure,
Space Battleship Yamato, Daikon 3 and 4, Crusher Joe, Aura Battler Dunbean, Macross Do You Remember Love, Starship Troopers, Gunbuster, Macross 2, Macross Plus, Macross 7, Rosophon, Mobile Suit Gundam Seed, Macross 0, Gundam Seed Destiny, Genesis of Aquarion, Eureka 7, Flag, Macross Frontier, The Girl Who Leapt Through Space, and the new Space Battleship Yamato.
I guess everyone has to have their own reindeer game. I guess that was it.
wow.
Woo!
Wow.
Let's hire that guy.
That's a would agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. No joke.
Dang. So yeah, there was a TV series and an OVA of Orgus, apparently.
It's just amazing that you don't really really hear anything about Orgus.
Yeah, no.
Is it a gem waiting to be discovered under years
Well,
of dust and filth?
And that
Or
appears
is
to
it a clod of dirt underneath dirt of the dust of years?
And I think that oh, that's funny. There is actually a mecha from Orgus in Macross. One of the mecha designs they just reused in Macross.
What?
Yeah.
What does it say? Which one? The monster.
It says a mecha from the Orgus series can be seen fighting alongside other Macross destroids in front of the bridge of the SDF-1 Macross in the last episode of the Macross TV series. It is K's Orgus, holds a shield and a rifle, but is then blown up in enemy fire. Sadly. Yeah.
Wow.
I'll have to
Jeez.
pull that up and see what's going on.
Yeah.
And
I was gonna
indeed,
say,
the main
Super
character,
domestic
the main character of Orgus remembers his previous girlfriends, one of whom is Minmay.
Oh dear God! Wow.
In episode 2 of Orgus, they show a
Damn.
flashback of his previous episodes, and Minmay, Shammy, and Vanessa all show up as his previous girlfriends. And Misa
Wow.
apparently shows up at some point. So yeah, just some fun
Wow.
stuff.
Dated Minmay.
and-
Minmay was only like 16, so.
Well,
what
he could have been
previous
younger. He could
dating
have been
was
younger.
there?
He could have been like a teenager at the same time when he was dating her, right? That's
So are they
reason.
considering dating being like elementary school holding hands and be like, I'm gonna marry you, and that's dating? Because
So
that's
I
about
gotta-
how they're gonna have to have done that.
so. I gotta tell you, JJ, when you're 16, there are some 16-year-olds who go beyond holding hands. I just want you to know that.
No,
that's
that doesn't happen. Not in anime. If I held somebody's hand, I'd have to get married.
It's true.
I'd be wrecked. Oh,
they see your
Oh.
underwear. You have to get married. My gosh.
exactly. I can no longer be a bride if you've seen my pantsu.
Mhm.
I mean, that if I understand nothing from anime, and apparently I don't, that's how it works.
Exactly.
Well, hand holding is tantamount to like murdering somebody. It's
Mhm.
serious stuff.
Pretty much.
Just saying.
God forbid there are cherry blossom petals falling as you're doing.
And one lands on
true.
your. Oh
Yeah.
no.
Mhm.
That's right.
That's
Yeah.
instant pregnancy.
Done.
Pregnancy, right there. Triplets, all the way.
True love. Anime's weird. I'm just saying.
It's got all us here on a Saturday night. That's for sure.
I just miss, and I just want to say it's so great hanging out with y'all. I miss the ability to live stream anime, which I used to do back in like the Ustream days. Because I get folks online just like this and in the chat, and we just start watching, something like Orgus, and do that late into the night. That was just so much fun. The internet's changed, but oh well.
I would love to have had Japan Sinks be something that we all could
Yeah.
have streamed and enjoyed, but I'm not going to subject anybody to that.
You need to see the world sinks except Japan.
Yeah.
That's what you should see, because that's a fun time.
Well, I think Chibi Godzilla.
Yeah, there we go.
I think that's a group. That's a SciTube watch right there.
Mhm.
Chibi Godzilla. That
That's
sounds to
true.
me like a quality experience.
Mm-hmm.
Versus some of the other offerings.
For some reason, as we're talking about this, I'm thinking of Chibi Godzilla and then What Up People at Maximum Hormone. How I desire to make an AMV of Chibi Godzilla with What Up People from Maximum Hormone, which is the title song is from Death Note.
Nice. See, I think maybe like come out and play with Godzilla would work pretty well.
Yeah.
Gotta keep them separated.
When you had said initially the Chibi Godzilla, all I could think of was Godzilla meets Bambi.
Oh, yeah, that is
You
a
know what I mean?
classic.
That's what kept running through my head. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I can't see how you're really gonna how that it's Godzilla living with somebody, but okay, how you draw that out
The
to a
fact
movie?
that there's a credit screen for all of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Credit screen for all of that. It was insane.
that was a classic piece in its day. Absolute limited animation and just awesome.
Yep.
It told a story, beginning, middle, end.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It kept you riveted all the way through.
Complete experience.
Folks, if you don't know what we're talking about, just Google it because you have to.
Mm-hmm.
Have to. It's a bucket list item.
Yeah.
So
Godzilla versus Bambi. Yeah. When all of this COVID-19 ends, we should do like a short animation festival. Like we should get together and just, collect a list of, remarkable, memorable short films and just go through it in an evening.
awesome.
Is this going to be a past midnight screening?
Some of them can be.
Because there's some memorable things that maybe aren't necessarily group friendly.
Okay.
Before midnight group friendly.
Okay. All right.
Geek archaeology after dark friendly.
We can talk. We can talk.
Now you see, this is landmark for the Opie. This one's landmark. No. Which this is the fun part. I was looking for My Dear Marie.
Yes.
I was looking for My Dear Marie.
Mm-hmm.
And I ran across what the hell was this called?
My Beautiful Girl Marie?
No,
That's a common
it was a lot worse than that.
Okay.
Oh.
It was, oh my goodness. Oh. My sister. It was not
the same
Boku no
thing.
Marie. It was
Okay,
not
yeah.
Boku no Marie. It was Boku no Tonari. No Ankoku Hakaishin ga imasu.
Okay.
That's not Boku no Marie.
No.
No, it isn't.
Okay.
And that was wow. Yeah, that was it was something. Well, it was different.
Okay.
It was like not what I was thinking I was going to end up watching, but that was the Destructive God Sits Next to Me is terrible.
Okay.
Sorry. That's the Boku no whatever. It's a Destructive God Sits Next to Me, and
Okay.
I would wish somebody could tell me the reason why that is a funny show. Because I did Completionist since I had the time. I watched all 12 episodes of it.
Wow.
And I can find no redeeming qualities to it. Boku no Marie was awesome. I really liked that. I really wanted to see more of it.
Yeah.
And there isn't. It's just the OVA just stops.
Mm-hmm.
And there's no end.
Yeah.
But holy. And I see RX0 saying Boku no Pico. No, we don't speak of that.
Yeah.
Don't speak of that. Destructive God, I don't know what source material led to it. It's not BL.
Okay.
I can see where its appeal is BL. It's an ensemble cast of just guys.
Mm-hmm.
But there isn't. It goes nowhere and it does nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like the end of this weekend, the end of quarantine time is going to be spent trying to figure out, now that I've finished it, trying to figure out why did it rise from the level of manga to anime, and then why did I see this? Why, what's the point of this?
There's a lot of that, and then there's the ones where you you like you say, how did this go from A to Z?
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the ones that you just make a horrible life choice, and you watch it, you sit in a corner and you cry for a few minutes, and you have no idea about what the hell you just watched. And for me, that was what was it? Higurashi.
Oi.
Yeah, and I had no idea. I went into it thinking
no.
I read nothing about it.
This is going to be a comedy. It's going to be funny. Oh, no.
That's what I thought it was going to be. I
Oh,
thought it was
God.
going to be a harem anime. That's what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
You're
I'm
not
watching
wrong.
No, not exactly. And then I'm watching it. I have had that is one of the few animes where I am certain my next door neighbor in the apartment complex is probably going, should we call the police? This guy is just dropping F-bombs left and right. He's not doing that. He's screaming at the top of his voice. He sounds like a little girl. What is he? The dude's like over 6 feet tall. What's going on? You know, and so I'm watching this thing, and I'm just like going, I'm scarred. I mean, I'm watching it, and you know, so it was the very first time in my life that I ever uttered the phrase "Jesus Christ screaming in hell" because
Wow.
it was a scene where the little girl,
the knife, yeah,
the Santoku knife,
yep,
up against the wall. She's doing this because she would. Okay, for those of you who don't know what a Santoku knife, it's actually only sharp on one bottom, and it's got a little tip that's going to be like that you can't really stab with, and the rest of it is blunt. She's chunking her head with this knife because villain, who I thought was going to be, you know, the love interest of the guy, boy, was I wrong on that one, is like, you know, what she's planning to do to this little girl is so horrible. The little girl knows it, that she would rather like stab herself in the head with Santoku knife. And I really thought at the beginning of this, because, you know, by that point, so many horrible things have happened. I was like, oh, she's just going to slash her and this is horrible. She's a cute little girl, and this is how it's going to end. No, it's like the writer said, no. I'm not even slashing her throat. No. We got to scar people with this one. We already did the fingernail bit with the, you know, which made me scream. So then by the end of it, literally, I'm like, you know, I'm just very quiet, and I'm taking my laptop screen and slowly closing it. I'm just like going, I can't even drink this one away. I can't.
Yeah.
You cannot unsee this, as the comedian says. You can't unsee this. And
hence why I've never watched
every now and
Igarashi.
And folks, unless you want to be scarred, unless you're a masochist, and like seeing ridiculous deaths done, and you know it's oh god, can't even. Okay, I need the rum now.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I got that reaction from, believe it or not, watching Shield Hero, Tate no Yusha.
Which one was that?
Where Tate no Yusha, the Shield Hero from this past season, I got the screaming at the video monitor because just what the character interactions, the things that are occurring, stuff that's going on, this the sort of slap you in the face injustice kind of crap that's just like all you can do is finish an episode, turn it off, and just like go into another room and be like, and then wait for another week to do the same thing. Like, but it wasn't nearly as like stabby and it was,
I had that experience with Made in Abyss.
With Made in the Abyss?
Which one?
Made in Abyss.
Wow.
Because of things that happen, and JJ, I think you've seen the scenes. There are two particular scenes that happen late in that show, which I literally had trouble falling asleep that night. Like it was that it was that traumatic for me, and partly because I spent a lot of time earlier in my life like volunteering with kids and like hanging out with kids in that area, like church groups and so forth. So I spent a lot of time with like tweens and, you know, older preteens and that kind of stuff. So I kind of have a heart for, you know, I like hanging out with kids that age. And those things were really horrible. And presented in that way. Like they weren't presented as, oh yeah, somebody died. Like, no, like how bad can we make this?
Well, I'm sure Promised Neverland hit you like a freight train.
That was not pleasant. No, that first episode. Granted, they built up to it. And I actually might go back to it because have you seen Promised Neverland?
After having seen the snippets and bits
Yeah.
and pieces of Abyss and Promised Neverland, and you talked a little bit about like some of your things that you found out about them, I'm like, nope. I don't know if I'm emotionally ready for that.
So, according to a friend of mine, who did go back and watch it, after the first episode, the rest of the series is basically the rest of the kids plotting how to get out, and like this cat and mouse game. It's not like kids dying right and left. It is it is a suspense story, not a horror story. I haven't verified that,
Right.
but that's what he claims. Promised Neverland actually wasn't
Yeah,
as
the
bad for
horror-y
me.
ones are hard to watch.
Yeah. But yeah, like they built up so much to Promised Neverland that when that actually happens at the end of episode 1, I was uncomfortable, but I was kind of prepared for it. Whereas Made in Abyss, well, the first one you do kind of, and that's the thing about Made in Abyss for me is that, especially in the case of the first one, there's a difference between doing something horrific and dwelling on it. And that's what Made in Abyss did for me, is that they very much dwelled on moments of torturing people, basically. And that's just, no, thank you. No, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not here to watch that.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Escape me. I don't want to be like tortured by this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, we need Chibi Godzilla.
Yeah.
I would also accept Ladies versus Butlers.
Okay. My Dear Marie is a
That's
nice
awesome.
little,
My Dear Marie.
refresher. Mm-hmm.
Hooray.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Quiet Country Cafe question.
Yes.
There's something that you notice in the cafe that's sitting on the table.
Yes.
And it's very obviously sitting on the table. And it's very obviously something that's sort of incongruous with Japan.
Yes.
Is that ever described in a way other than what you know about living isolated in a area where there's not a lot of people and no help?
I don't believe so, no.
So they don't address that.
No, they address why she has it for that reason.
Okay.
But it does not become a plot point.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was what I wondered. Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
And thank you for being able to talk around it, because I still haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I will say, and I hope this isn't a spoiler. What you see of Quiet Country Cafe in the anime is exactly the manga all the way through. Like, there are no surprises in the manga. There is some more plot. But the tone, the feel, there are no weird dark twists, none of that stuff. It is very much kind of that, just with a little bit more, and there's a bit more explanation about kind of what's going on in the world, at large.
Okay.
In the sense of like, is there really nobody doing anything? Like, is there really no other plans? Like, is nobody like trying to do anything? There's a little bit
Right.
more hints about that kind of stuff, but yeah.
Are there like so many things? Again, I'll bring back Japan sinks.
Mm-hmm.
England doesn't sink. Sri Lanka doesn't sink. Australia does not sink. Just Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what I mean? Quiet Country Cafe is the greater issue that's occurring. This national angst over population, or is it truly global? So everywhere in the world, this angst is the reality,
Yeah,
is it just it's Japan? Nothing else in the world exists. Doesn't matter. We're just talking about here, right now, this place, the little archipelago. That's it.
No, it is global,
Okay.
but it does vary from place to place. So the same general thing is happening, but Japan has been affected differently because of the coastlines, archipelago, all that kind of stuff. So as I recall,
And it's anime.
Yeah, exactly, yes,
It's anime.
And it's anime.
Mhm. Yeah, and as Charles pointed out, in fairness to Quiet Country Cafe, they it's been described as a manga designed for tired salarymen to read on the way home from work. It is meant to be relaxing and to be it's meant to look at and to be beautiful and to look at Alpha and go, oh. It has some plot in there, but it is, it's not meant to be particularly intellectually challenging. right?
Yuru Camp or Non Non Biori? Yes.
Yeah.
Quiet Country Cafe? I would think that would the motivation would be like, look at how the world goes in the future. Find somebody to have kids with now.
That may be
You know what I mean?
part
Like,
of it too.
a subtle propaganda tool versus like, oh, this is so relaxing. I can't
This
wait
is
till
maybe
the end of the world. I don't have to work anymore. Like, okay.
This is like before 2020, so like anything that you might get out of this hopeful or relaxing, you know, to go back in time to the quiet cafe people said, this is happening in 2020. Can you do something about it? We're not relaxed at all right now.
Exactly. Yes.
That's not happening. Something in the time capsule for us in 2020.
Yeah.
I do wonder. Apparently, there are a significant number of manga that have been made with the intent of, as we said before, you know, hey, Japanese people, have more babies. You know, things like, you know, Tsubato, Sweetness and Lightning, other manga like that, where, you know, it wasn't necessarily the primary driver behind it, but you can certainly see this, you know, this kind of thing there. I do wonder how many, you know, manga are, you know, do have that motivation behind them. Non Biori, I think, does have that kind of feel of, hey, kids are fun, you know? It's not bad to be around kids.
Having children doesn't suck. Yeah, cool. Well, you've changed my mind.
Hey, honey. Yep.
Yeah. Well, to say,
You can watch or you can watch the Tenchi episodes when they're taking care of the nephew. Washu's the only one who's able to go. Yeah. Well, they're babies. They're supposed to be selfish. And meanwhile, all the other girls are just like, oh my god, the monster.
And that also has one of the great Washu moments. The kind of the reveal of Washu's backstory.
Oh yeah. One of my favorite characters.
Oh yeah.
I enjoy Tenchi. All the disconnected bits and pieces I've seen everywhere.
That is very much a thing about Tenchi. It is many bits and pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Which, I mean, if you hadn't said about War on Geminar, give me a little more information on that. There's no way to tell the difference from regular Tenchi from War on Geminar. All I was looking at, I'm like looking at Tenchi, going, okay, how the hell did he end up here? Like, what? Was there a dimensional door? How the hell why is he doing? Where did he go from the house of the lake to here?
And that wouldn't surprise me.
No, and that's the thing that's good about Tenchi is the fact that you could just sort of slide things in and out in their universe. Random wacky things happen anyway. So what the hell?
Oh yeah.
If you could have,
I mean, it's great to be able to have those problem-solving techniques where you're looking at that house and you're like, just shrink it.
Yeah.
And bring it onto the ship and we'll just move it somewhere else.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or I'm gonna grow a tree, and that tree's a ship.
Hey, yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Sure. That works. I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The strange thing is that it actually all does work.
Yep.
Well, as I say, it's a universe where it's self-contained in all the rules that it needs to function, and just because they don't make any sense to this universe doesn't mean a damn thing.
Exactly.
Still entertaining.
Oh yeah.
Still fun.
You know, I mean, this is a setting where multiple gods live in the same household. You know, whatever. We'll just go with it.
Well, I mean, it's like Kamichu. You know, Kamichu. You could be people one day, be a god the next day. Whatever. You know, it all happens. It's a thing.
Yep. I actually think this might be a generational thing. I suspect, because a lot of folks of our age got into anime back in the day when there was a lot of this anime with strange concepts, with strange premises behind them. And that isn't as much of a common thing anymore. And I think one of the reasons that modern anime fans have a difficult time going back to those old shows is because they are so ridiculous.
Were you telling me God of High School makes sense?
Well, fair.
Really?
Anybody can have Star.
Decadence makes sense. Peter Grill. Well, no, Peter Grill does make sense.
Yeah. and Decadence is absolutely kind of a throwback to those 90s anime. It feels very 90s.
Yeah, I again, and I think that's part and parcel of why Darling in the Franxx was what got the reception it got, is because the story on Darling in the Franxx is not groundbreakingly new.
Mm-hmm.
And if anything, a giant mobile city, wastage of the world, and those are kind of things that you really do encounter, a decade or more ago, and it is a nice throwback, and I think it got as much reception as it did because it was interestingly done. Certainly, the characters were appealing, and it touched on something that was nostalgic.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, pretty much anything you go back and look at, that seemed to be original at the time, you can trace back to something, 10 years prior, 20 years prior, they were just bringing back.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
I'm waiting for the remake of Clockwork Orange and Taxi Driver.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Because, anime, much like Hollywood, it regurgitates.
Yep.
And reshapes and shuffles around and tries to claim for, new content. Or it's like, no, it's not really. It's the same thing.
Mm-hmm. Gotta sell those Clockwork Orange toys.
I keep seeing a Clockwork Orange toy. There's a vendor. I don't remember. He gave me his business card one. I don't remember who it was, but he's got these very cool rolling racks that he has. Literally, there's like a plexi front that he just like clips on to the fronts of these racks to keep all of his figures in place, and then just rolls the racks in and out of a flatbed truck.
Cool.
So or a box truck.
Yeah.
So he rolls them off, pulls the front off, and that's it. He's ready to go. He sets up shop. It takes 20 minutes, half an hour to get everything ready.
Cool.
He's got a Clockwork Orange Alex from Clockwork Orange with his top hat and its whole thing,
okay,
and I'm like, no, it does not have his eyes peeled open to watch the ultraviolence.
You know how some of the action dolls actually had an action to it, like you press a button or they say something,
like Kung Fu chopping Superman or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think that the Alex doll actually had, if you press the button, if it would sing "Singing in the Rain"? Those of you who
Maybe
Clockwork Orange, you would know what that is.
It could also call you my little droogies. Who knows? Any number of things. All I know is I was looking for a Rem Figma, and at the time they had already done their first run. So I was waiting to see if either a first run would come up or the second run would come up, because they were going to come up with a second run, which I did find. Thank goodness. Yay. But I was sort of poking around in there, and I see there's Freddy Krueger, and I'm like, that's Freddy Krueger. That's kind of normal. It's a horror-y kind of thing. I'm like, there's DC Universe. There's Batman. There's Wonder Woman, and there's Clockwork Orange. And I'm like, wow, that's really uniquely specific. It's like that. McFarlane Toys with like selling the Kiss, entire Kiss collection. It's like, okay, that was something they did like 15, 20 years ago, because that was a thing. But it's like, it wasn't a McFarlane toy. I don't even know who made it, but it was a really good figure. It was really well sculpted. It's just really odd content to choose.
Well,
like, how?
I just want to know who it was that bought it.
I saw it.
First,
I saw it at 3 cons. I saw it at Star City first time. Then I saw the same guy at Triad, like later that year, and then I saw it at Star City again. So it went through a complete year cycle being in part of his inventory. So obviously, the audience that's supposed to
it.
That what? What'd you say, Steve?
No, I was just asking how much was he selling? Out of curiosity. If you remember,
it was shy of 100.
Okay.
But more than like your average, con goer is gonna have throwing in cash on for it. So
there's a great YouTube channel called Toy Galaxy that talks about toys, obviously. And one of the things they talk about on there is the fact that how interesting that toys have become kind of this bifurcated market, where there are toys for kids and then there are toys for adults, and there are action figures that are produced entirely for the adult market. They figure kids are never going to buy these things. And that's where some of these toys come out. Obviously, a lot of the McFarlane ones were clearly aimed more at an adult audience.
Right.
So yeah, it's
I'm
probably
trying
just
to
one
think
of those
about
things.
my Eric Draven that I have. I think it was like a Drastic Plastic or something like that from The Crow. There's not going to be too many kids that are like 10 or 12 buying a Crow figure.
No.
You know, you're like, that's a little on the outside, I think.
Well, on the other hand, who remembers the Toxic Avengers cartoon?
Cartoon or the movies?
The cartoon.
Cartoon and movie.
And movies,
I think
There was a
I only
cartoon.
saw like screenshots of the cartoon. Never saw the cartoon.
Yeah, they tried
It
to
is
market
so
that thing to kids.
ridiculously bad and awesome.
The old Trauma team.
Yep.
Oy.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Trauma movies.
Oh man.
I love them. They're so
They did.
Z level.
They didn't do Killer Clowns from Outer Space, right?
I don't think so.
I don't think they did.
No,
I don't
they
think they did.
Yeah.
No. But they did. Was it Attack of the Killer Tomatoes?
Yep.
They did a whole bunch of
Yep.
different stuff.
Yeah.
All the Tromaville. I just think it's hilarious that they actually set up a little space of land to do all their moves, and they actually named it Tromaville, actual town.
Well, it is New Jersey. It could have been Elizabeth or Trenton or Newark. Just slap Tromaville over the front of that, and you're fine. It's the same thing.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to attend a panel with what's his name, Harvey, the founder of Trauma. No.
Oh my!
Yeah.
He was a character. Oh
Yeah.
My God.
And it was at Gen Con, and there were only like 6 people at the panel for some strange reason. But he was there just talking about, how, and he was in high dudgeon. This is the head of Trauma, not Harvey Weinstein. And he was talking, and he was saying, he said there aren't actually all that many independent movies being made in America. We think independent movies and we think Sundance. Those are 20, 30, 50 million dollar movies. Those aren't really independent in the way that we think of them. Trauma's going out there with, $5,000 and throwing together a movie, and it's exactly what the filmmaker intended, right down the line. And it might be about, evil killer chickens, but it's gonna be that thing that they wanted to make.
It was like John Waters with Divine. It's like a lot of the Divine stuff was done on the same kind of like shoestring budget. Just terrible. But wholly independent.
Yep.
I got to see him do a speech at here in Baltimore.
Oh, nice.
Not here in Baltimore. I was over in Baltimore with the library. He was our motivational speaker.
Oh wow.
That's a hell of a motivation.
I know, right? And the theme of his speech was, if you want me to wreck your career, star in one of my movies. He was certain that he was going to destroy Johnny Depp's career. But Divine actually lived in an old apartment building that I lived in.
Oh, wow.
Not at the same time, obviously, but he lived there. But some of that older stuff, water stuff, oh my goodness, yeah, it's definitely trauma level.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, you got to start somewhere, and
It's true.
John Waters started somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
He did.
Yeah. Well, and you go back and you look at, Spielberg, making movies as a kid, just throwing things together. You can say you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. Well, it's like, and that's the beauty of now is the 12 megapixel camera on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
You can make there are whole YouTube channels on just mini iPhone smartphone movies.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I remember in high school with some friends making a horror film. And that required having the full-on like shoulder-mounted VHS camera with the full-size VHS cassettes. Yeah, and that
Yeah, not professional grade, but boy, was that some
Rainy, but so much fun.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
So much fun. You had a
I
battery life of like your battery was like a third of the size.
yeah, it was basically the size of
You
a
had
brick.
like 45 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
he had like 45, kind of about as heavy as one. Like about 45 minutes worth.
Yeah,
of juice.
it was
Yep.
but it was there were people that did that
Okay.
as like a one off and done, or then those people who kept doing it,
Mm-hmm.
and now they're billionaires. Ah!
Where did we go wrong?
Obviously, we didn't know the right people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's something about being 15. I don't think anybody's going to take that seriously anyway.
We had distribution problems.
Yeah,
Exactly.
quite literally. Does anybody have a spare VHS that we can like copy tape to tape? No? Ah, damn. There goes
Have you ever tried to make an AMV doing that?
Thankfully,
Okay, I'm showing
no.
my age now.
Yeah.
What?
I have done that once. I had the luxury of being able to use the AV studio in my high school to do it
Wow.
because it was the only machine that I could find where you do edits on it. But it was just as crude as Microsoft Office Movie Maker. You know, it's like, but you put in the tapes that you wanted to clip the scenes from, and it was such chore because you had to. It's like cassette tapes. Fast forward. No. Ah, shit. Go back. Rewind. You know, and all that stuff. So it would take days to make, you know, it's the visual of what you were cutting, what you're editing, because you had to add the audio later. So if your cut didn't make so that you really had to time your cut. So you know, you had to know how long your song was. So if your song was 4 minutes and 26 seconds. You had to have your video go 4 minutes 20 seconds. Otherwise, it would just work.
See, these are nuances lost when you take your VHS, you tuck it under your arm, and you put it in the car, and you drive over to your friend's house, and you say, "I've got Macross. Do you remember Love?" burned off of a laser disc on this VHS. We need to hook your VHS up to this.
Yep.
And then we have to make sure that we've got the input-output done right.
Yeah.
And we need to have the hooked up to the television so we can see where we are, and that way we can then like tape to tape.
This is
no
the thing,
editing.
This is the thing a lot of folks don't realize these days is how restricted one was when it comes to format. Where, you know, if you came home with a beta tape, you're done.
You're done.
You're on your own.
Like there's, you know, you can't just convert that. You can't just plug it into a machine and it comes out something else now. It is just you're done.
Yeah.
Cowboy Bebop. Episode of Cowboy Bebop when they're trying to watch Face.
Oh,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly. Yes, there we go.
Yep.
It's wrong format. You know.
Yep. Which is funny because, you know, they're addressing something that you would imagine in the future. You know, it's like, wow, you know, anything in the future, pretty much, you know, whether it's MP3, MP4, you know, you have freely sort of slidable formatted adaptations that you can watch or listen to whatever you want to.
Yeah.
But then you drive back to those days and it's like, nope, if you were a VHS and all you had was a VHS player, that's it. That's all you had. It didn't play DVDs and it didn't play betas. If you had a Betamax, that's all it did. Like,
This
there was
is
no
something.
nothing else.
I just remember as a kid watching the Betamax section go smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
And me going to my parents going, get a VHS. Oh no, Betamax is much more superior.
Yeah.
Get a VHS.
Yeah.
And so you got like the 3 movies and the rest of it is in the back adult section. Like, okay.
It's time. No, video games have this
that's
problem.
also yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I was going to say DVD, VHS, and the video game section, same kind of thing. It's like you just watch them get smaller and smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is the problem that video game archivists have, where it's like, you know, how do you play a PlayStation 2 game if you don't have a PlayStation 2? You know, a lot of this stuff. How do you play? And unless the emulation is really good, a lot of this stuff is kind of lost media because it's just kind of gone. The hardware isn't there.
say in the basement, I've got 5 1/4. There was a game I played with my first 386 SX.
Mm.
It
Good
had
days.
a meg of memory
Not bad.
and 256K
Yeah.
RAM.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Hey, you can play Civil. Hey, you can play Sid Meier's.
Oh yes, I could.
Mm.
But I played a game called Caveman Olympics, and it was a 5 1/4 floppy.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
You know
yeah.
what I mean? Like
Oh.
Sid Meier's
Yeah.
first Civ was on a 3.5,
Mm-hmm.
but this
Yeah,
was on a 5
yeah.
1/4.
Oh, yeah.
I've
on a
still
true
got
floppy.
that. And have you
floppy.
seen the last time that anything anywhere ever had a 5 1/4, much less a 3.5? It's like
Well-
boxes of this.
Yeah, and that's the thing is it you can buy 5 1/4 inch USB pluggable external drives. Okay, you buy
They
one of
still
those.
make them?
Oh yeah,
No, really?
yeah.
God.
They were last time I was checking. But here's the thing. Okay, you buy
Dang.
that, you plug it in, you copy the files off. Now what?
Well, it's very
And that,
simple. You
that ran on DOS 3.1.
Yeah, I was gonna say you run DOS, and then you play it, right? I mean, that's how it works, right?
Caveman Olympics looks awesome, I gotta say.
Oh, it was amusing.
It looks
for
fun,
its
yeah.
time, but you know what I mean. It's like that's one of those things. It's like there's stacks of
Mm-hmm.
media that goes out the door. I've got Clockwork Orange, and I've got Taxi Driver. I've got Excalibur. I've got all these things on VHS,
Mm-hmm.
and fortunately my
I've got a whole season. I've got a whole season of Toonami on.
yeah, and it's like
Mhm.
I've got still a VHS I can play it on. I just plug it in. But it's like these things are so funny. It's like you end up each new piece of media gets replaced, and you end up with a stack of stuff where it's like, okay, if you don't carefully preserve something to view it on, you just end up with boxes of stuff where it's like, I don't know what to do with this. I feel bad because Caveman Olympics cost me like $29.99 in like 1989.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know what I mean? Yes, it's been enough time. I could say time value of money. It's now gone. It's, I don't have to do that anymore. But that's where then the like collector part kind of kicks in where you're like, okay, it's not worth anything anymore. The years have gone by.
Yeah.
But now at some point in time, somebody somewhere is going to be like, oh, there was this really rare ET game. And the next really rare game was Caveman Olympics. I'd be like, ha, 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 eBay. Ha, ha. I'm rich.
I would like to. I'm trying to remember this YouTube video I saw about this guy who actually takes in floppy disks and more specifically the 3.5-inch discs, because he's a guy who actually erase them, reformat them, and send them to government agencies that still put stuff on that.
Oh gosh,
And I'm just
yeah,
reading
of
this.
course.
Wow.
And I think it's on Great Big Story is what it's telling me. But there's a little bit of information here that says, under the people who also ask question, who still uses floppy disks. U.S. Nuclear Force still uses floppy disks. The U.S. Nuclear Weapons Force still uses a 1970s era computer system and 8-inch floppy disks. Government report has revealed, and this was from BBC.
That's not very reassuring.
Well, here's the thing, and 'cause I
Find a silo. You find a silo, and you'll be able to play all these games.
exactly. Yeah, there we go.
I'm moving to Kansas next week. I'm sure they'll have a decommissioned silo out there somewhere.
Well, this is the thing: is that a lot of those systems. It's actually an interesting issue. A lot of those systems were built for a particular purpose. It is not easy to upgrade them. There are many complicated, interrelated systems that were all built to interrelate on those things. Also, you had the problem, and this is kind of weird. It's difficult to find people who are willing to work on them.
Yeah, I believe that.
Mm-hmm.
Calling it an outside contractor to come do a nuclear missile silo.
A lot of them were just like,
Yeah, I can't imagine that'd be too much fun for that. But
Mm-hmm. And so a lot of them were just like, we're just going to keep on. And also the other thing, and this is the thing, is that a lot of things were like rated for radiation hardening, so
Yes.
they can survive certain radiation. And a lot of modern things have not been rated for that. So you have to go through a whole process that isn't common anymore to try to figure out if this modern piece of tech will actually survive the way the old ones could. It probably can, but you don't know.
The other thought that it sort of comes to my mind is largely pre-internet and online resources that are standalone and rely on vocal communication or a terminal that you then can communicate with that's not connected to the nuclear bombs.
Yep.
I would see maybe where one would say this is the preferred fashion, because then what we have to worry about is somebody hacking in the terminal and then printing a message that says launch them all, let's go, versus worrying about the 8-inch floppy disk driven, pre-internet, pre-Ronald Reagan piece of machinery over there. Nobody can hack into it.
Yep.
Because it doesn't have a modem.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like it can't do anything. All you can do is like mess with people's mind on the monitor that just shows text messages. It can't launch the bombs.
The most secure hardware is that which is not connected to the internet.
Yeah. I mean, but still, God.
Yeah. And I do have to correct myself. I am not finding any 5.25-inch floppy drives on Amazon. Plenty of 3.5-inch ones though. But eBay probably has a bunch.
Well, I think I told you this, Brent, that like when I bought, again, it's an older concept of a stereo system where you buy your tuner, you buy your CD player, the whole Yamaha system, you set it all up. You don't really buy a record player anymore, although apparently vintage vinyls, that's now a thing. That's a more new thing now. That's interesting. But when I went to buy the cassette deck, because like all the old media I have a ton of cassettes.
Yes.
They had a Sony dual deck. It was the last one.
Yeah.
And they said they had it for years. It was new in box. It wasn't ever, any kind of issue with it. It was still sealed. Everything was fine. But they had it for years because, you know what I mean? Nobody buys it. So imagine a 5.25 USB plug. Nobody's buying it.
Yeah.
So it's like you'd have to rely on somebody to go to the landfill, dig it out with the ETs.
Yep.
Hey, 5.25 USB connector. How'd that get here?
Yeah. No, that's why a couple of years ago I went back. I digitized all my 3.5-inch floppies. I digitized all my cassette tapes. All that stuff, all my CDs, they're all ripped. They're all, all copied on, because otherwise it's just like, they're going to be gone someday.
What'd you do with the original media, though?
Kept my vinyl. That definitely kept the vinyl. The tapes, like all the cassette tapes that I have are all my mixtapes. But I didn't really care. Once it went to CD, I was just like, okay, much easier format to store. And of course, everything went digital, and I was just like working off of a woefully inadequate power computer. I was like, oh, I don't have enough for Napster. It was, that's actually what got me
the Napster days.
It's the Napster days when you would like go, oh, hey, it's it's Aztecs Cameras hit song. Yeah, I want that one. Right, hit rip. Enough time to go to the store and come back, and I'll have my 3-minute song.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing like analog downloading.
Yeah.
No, I kept the vinyl not because because they have the new ones. I'm actually looking at my sister's right now. Where it's portable and you can put in a USB port and you can digitize everything. And but I kept it just because the artwork on the label and the artwork on the back when that kind of thing really mattered.
Right.
I didn't have anything vintage. I didn't have anything.
It doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way in a heck I'm going to throw away my Fly By Night or Rush record, with the big owl on the front, and there's no way I'm gonna throw that guy away or Styx's the name of the animal with Domo Arigato on it.
Oh,
The
yeah.
Mr. Roboto album.
Mr. Roboto. Yeah, it's amazing, and like they used to, for the album covers, some of these would be just a single final album, but that you would open it up,
Yeah.
and then there would be information, playlists, and all this
Mhm.
additional stuff in there. So you would want to keep that. I think Beach Boys 1976 album, which was has something like that, and they actually had little things you could pull out and cut and make tabs out of
Oh,
them.
nice. Wow.
And stickers and stuff like that.
Well, how about the original Star Wars dual album set,
Lost it.
where all it said was Star Wars, big
Mm.
bifold. You pulled it out 2 discs, all John Williams music, and then all pictures and descriptions and everything else on the inside of it. Yeah.
My parents had a reel-to-reel.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Friend of mine in high school, his parents had one of those and
Yeah.
swore
Which
to
one
the
was it?
superior audio capacity. Wow.
Yeah, I'm kind of concerned because my parents are like they have a bunch of vinyl which they have not played in 50 years, and it's a nice collection, and it's stuff from they got jazz stuff, they got rock, all sorts of things. Yeah. And one of these days, I'm gonna have to do something with all of it.
Yep.
And I have no idea whether they're gonna give it to me or whatever, but it's like oh man, that's an odd decision to have to make.
Yeah.
Mm.
I'm actually looking at that myself. My dad's got a 400 plus dollar collection, but his stuff is all from 19. Almost all of it's from 1950 to 1970.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
A lot of it's 45s and stuff, and he's a big music file of that era, and like he said, like some of the ones he goes, okay, this may not look interesting, like a DC labeled, yellow, just black lettering on it, and because this song doesn't mean anything. Nobody likes this particular song because they made the label this particular way, and what they did is they double labeled. So there was a run. So when they do a run, they put one label on it, they put another label on top.
Mm-hmm.
DC only did that for 63, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what makes a chunk of vinyl worth something, apparently about $30. But the song itself, no one remember. I can't even tell you what the song.
Yeah, yeah.
But part of it is the music on it, but part of it is just the art of the records, particularly if you find some of the really old 3 RPMs classicals from the 1930s, and they're really thick, and again, it's not so much the record itself, what it came packaged in, and it's just like so much thought was put into it, like hard cardboard, like because at the time that was the technology of the phonograph.
Yeah.
It was like, here you go, and this is it. So if you were rich enough for the phonograph, you were rich enough to pay for this very velvet lined and wonderful, tasteful RPM record of Mary Had a Little Lamb. But it was
that's where the term album came from. Yeah.
Yeah.
The old 78s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I've got an Edison, and I don't even remember.
Wow.
It's my old Kentucky home, and the thing is about 1/4 inch thick.
Mm-hmm.
It's so thick that it actually has like the serial numbers written on the edge of the actual record.
Yeah.
It's every once in a while I'll crank up the old radiola and I'll play them, but it's like finding needles for that is amazingly difficult. I'm glad when I bought it there were about 10,000 scattered all inside the damn thing. So.
Yeah,
3-2-1 Contact. Speaking of old things, 3-2-1 Contact. I don't know if you ever watched that show.
Yeah.
He said, "Well, if you can't find a needle, if you have a cactus. Get the cactus, put it into the hole of the styrofoam cup, and dangle it by the wires, and let the grooves grab it." And it just popped out the sound. And
wow.
Well, that's an option. I thought about buying the record player and USB, porting it, playing music that way. But a cup and a cactus needle, that works too.
Yeah, the old Edison stuff. He did not have a good idea of business. He just did not understand what would sell well. With the cylinders and all that. Like,
Yeah.
it's just not.
Well,
a really
his
good idea.
concept was that you would buy anything he made.
Mhm.
It's like,
Yeah, pretty much.
if it made noise and it looked impressive, that's all you really needed.
Pretty much. Mm-hmm. Competition?
Oh, and
No.
if it wasn't his and he still sold it as his, that was all fair game too.
Mm-hmm. Granted, that was
poor old Nicholas Tesla.
Granted, that was a common thing back then. That was pretty much American business back then.
Still pretty crappy, but
Oh yeah, no question. But it is hilarious. There's a whole thing on. In fact, one of the reasons for American copyright was all of the American publishers who would just republish books. They would just find a book that was published and just publish it themselves. Why not? Don't need rights, don't need anything like that. Just republish the thing. It's like,
Well, I mean, we had this discussion before about Chinese copyright and trademark law.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't do it by their standard, they could do the same thing. They could just say, oh, here's a Bandai toy, and you guys didn't do all the proper registrations and stuff. We're gonna, we know we're manufacturing it for you in a Chinese facility, and now we're just gonna make it too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, cool.
Yeah. All right, I think that will do it for us for tonight. Checking through the plan. Yep, I think that is everything.
Oh no, it's not everything.
No?
No, it's not. Because what did we learn on
Of
night?
course. Of course.
Can't miss that part.
Right. That is a question. What did we learn?
What did we learn on the show tonight, Brent?
What did we learn on the show tonight, guys? I know I learned that Godzilla can be cute.
I was gonna say Chibi Godzilla. Looking forward to it.
Mm-hmm.
What's the turtle? Who's the turtle? Gamera.
Gamera.
Is there a
Gamera.
Chibi Gamera?
Ooh, Gamera is friends to all children, so there should be.
Oh yeah.
I would like to see that. I mean, Chibi Mothra is just going to be ridiculously cute anyway.
True. Mm-hmm.
I mean, Godzilla, anything Chibi is just by its nature is cute, but like a Chibi Gamera would be pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. It would.
I think we've learned that the depression of nuclear holocaust can be amended or mitigated by bourbon whiskey, whatever your choice is, and Godzilla Chiba, and reading a nice copy of How to Be a Better Manager.
Yes.
Gundam stuff.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Now, Brent, this is going to be the part you're going to have to go back to your employers and say, we need this training. We need to have this training, and then film it, and then show us all what the Gundam what the Gundam business model looks like.
I'll see what I can
A
do.
lot of slack.
It's gonna be a hell of a sale to get in there. Welcome to the Gundam training. First and foremost, do not attack orbital platforms. Second of all, as an orbital platform, don't declare your independence. Third of all, wait a minute, how's this got to do with anything? Oh no, man, I see it all. It's all coming together.
All connected. It's all connected.
Oh, we're gonna be better than the biggest businesses everywhere. We're gonna be Berkshire Hathaway.
Yep. If you see a blonde guy in a mask, be careful, but he's also very smart.
Ask him questions, but don't wrong him.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Avoid his family and anyone involved in him is pretty solid advice.
Yeah. No personal questions. Just ask business-related questions. This is business training. That's right.
And headshots are key to
Yes, this is true. Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting because you play up the headshots as in the.
Yeah, there we go.
The actual headshot. It's important for business for a headshot,
Exactly. Yeah.
not a headshot. Unless that's your business, in which case then go for it.
And for what it's worth, and man, I probably first watched Gamera all the way through on MST3K as well. Certainly some bits of it before that, but that was probably my first big exposure to Gamera. And I would agree with you that 7 episodes into Zeta Gundam, it probably doesn't come across quite as well as 0079. Wait for it. I would argue, keep with it. The interesting things will happen in Zeta Gundam. Anyway, yep, I think that will do it for us for tonight. Thank you all so much for being part of this. Great conversation as always. And
Thank you.
yeah,
Thank you very much.
thank you all very much. And until next time, watch more anime.
Bye.
Bye.